Hey, welcome everybody to the 2023 Mock Selection Committee show, session one of five we're going to have over the course of the next 4 days. We are extremely excited. I hope you are too. The first thing you got to do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button to spread the word. And I'm sure there's a lot of basketball fans that kind of like a sneak peek at what the bracket's going to look like. We were pretty darn successful last year, so we'll give you a pretty good taste of what maybe the committee is going to look at, and certainly with the discussion. This year is sponsored by Godfather's Pizza Pie Piled High. They have over 1,200 locations around the country, serving the best pizza you ever taste. Go to godfathers.com. You'll find full-service restaurants, as well as express units and travel centers, airports, convenience shops, college campuses, and an online ordering service. If they're near you, they will deliver. I am going to partake of some tomorrow night. I'll have some here to show you how thick and great it is. They've got tons. If you told me if I could just have like one pizza, I would have the classic combo. That's I'm going to have tomorrow night. It's awesome. It's got pepperoni sausage, ham, beef, Italian sausage, bacon, topped off with tons of mozzarella. And I would also recommend taco pizza is great. Fantastic. Some of the best taco pizza I've ever had, and their desserts are off the charts. The cinnamon monkey bread, dough covered in cinnamon sugar. It's just it's so good you gain 20 pounds just looking at it. So check them out today. Godfather's Pizza, godfathers.com. It's pizza pie piled high. Okay, so we just want to kind of break down, first of all, some introductions. I'm Tim Kruger. We got Dave Ullman, Rocket Phil, Shelby Mast. Everybody's heard of Shelby before with USA Today. Brad Wachtel. Graham Dorn's our alternate. He's also going to be our ballot person for the first couple of sessions. So he's going to be shooting out those ballots to us. By the way, Shelby's going to be our scoreboard update. You know how on the radio you used to have the we're on the 30 here. We're going for a scoreboard update. We're going to throw it over to Shelby. He'll give us an update on some of the scores of games that are pertinent to our bracket. Kerry Miller, Bleacher Report, and Rocco Miller, the bracketeer, and our five producer, Zach Weaver, running the whole show for us. Just to clarify, so our sessions, we have 7 Eastern tonight, 7 Eastern again tomorrow night. People have asked me, how long do these go? As long as we want. If we're making good progress, we'll knock it off in early time. A little bit, I'll kind of draw out what we're going to do tonight. Saturday, we'll kick it off at 10 a.m. Eastern, probably go till 5, 6 or somewhere in that. Shelby can get in front of the TV for Duke, North Carolina. And the rest of us will be watching like UCLA, Arizona. Sorry. And Sunday, we'll kick it off at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then we'll wrap it all up at the end of the day, 6 o'clock. We'll have a selection show very similar to what CBS does. And we get to see Kerry get all dressed up again. It's cool.
Hell yeah.
These sessions are all on YouTube. So all on our YouTube channel. They're all live. You can also go back later on when we're done. Zach will load those up. So if you want to go back and see a certain section about a certain team, whatnot, we'll kind of give you a heads up kind of how we think it'll all roll out here in a little bit. We're also going to have special guests throughout the week. Tonight, Joel Lenardi is going to join us in about 2 hours or so. We're also right now we're efforting a couple other people. Unfortunately, Mike DeCourcy cannot make it this year. He's tied up. But we will have Dave Warlock from the NCAA. He was going to join us on Sunday when we do the bracket. If you're not familiar with Dave stands up at the podium in front of all the members of the NCAA committee, and he runs that. That's his favorite part, is the bracketing. And he makes sure it goes 100% smooth. And with the software they have, I don't know how they can mess it up, but seriously. We're basically just real quickly before we get going, I just want to kind of say, like, we're trying to replicate as closely as possible what the committee does and how they do it. I think that's the most important part. We're all about education here. A lot of people have never seen how the voting goes. They think they just go in a room and pull names out of a hat and say thumbs up, thumbs down, and that's not how it goes. And so the good thing is we're going to be able to replicate a lot of the discussion, a lot of the voting. Obviously, we're trying to squeeze this from 60 plus hours down to 30. So we kind of have to take a little bit of leeway with a couple of things. The three things we kind of cut short. Number one, they have a big conference report before they turn in their ballot on the first day. Everybody talks about teams in their conference. And as one can imagine, there's a lot of conferences, a lot of like Big 12, you could talk for an hour on it. So that's a lot of time that we feel better served actually picking teams into the bracket and having discussion. We'll have plenty of discussion about conferences and so forth. Number two, we kind of do a condensed process of the automatic bids, the bids like 12 through 16 seeds, mid majors, low majors. We kind of just, throw 6 names out there. Hey, these look like the top 6 for this seed. What do you think? We kind of vote on it, move on to the next seed list. And then Rocco will veto any mid major that we have too high or too low. And then finally, the third thing we kind of take a little liberty with is the initial ballot. The NCAA turns in an initial ballot and it's up to 36 teams. They never pick 36. Dave Warlock had told me like they pick anywhere from 25 to 30 generally. We're doing it like a week out, so it's even a little harder for us. But again, in the effort of time, we can kind of cut down maybe 1 or 2 voting periods, which can take up to 45 minutes to an hour. We can kind of condense that down. And frankly, the teams that we've got on our ballot and the teams that the difference between those and the teams that they left out, those teams are going to get in anyway. So they may not get in right away. They may not get in until the very end, but they're probably going to get in. So we kind of save a little bit of time there. So on our initial ballot, which we're going to show you here in a little bit, we had 34 teams make the cut. 33 of them were unanimous, where that means they were on all 6 ballots. If they were on 5 of 6 ballots, they got into the field. So feel pretty confident that the list we've got is pretty good. And again, just because they're in the field doesn't mean they're going to be no worse than an 8 seed. No, they could, as the seeding goes along, when we start seeding, and oftentimes too with the weekend basketball games, results come in, they could slip down, and not only that, at any time, a member can request that, hey, I think this team should go back into the at-large pool. We get 5 out of 6 votes that say, yay, we agree. We will put that team back in to the at-large pool. Doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. I think just to kind of get you going, so the first thing we're going to do, we'll show you the teams that made it. We will then just kind of scan down the list of teams that are under consideration, and then we will begin a ballot where we will pick 8 teams from that under consideration board. We'll bring them on, we'll have discussion, and then we will do a ranking process 1 through 8. We'll send out a ballot. It'll be 1 through 8. The top 4 teams on that list, they move into the field. The other 4 teams move into what we call a holding cross-country chart. We then go back into the pool. We pull 8 more out. We vote for 4. We pull those 8 out. Top 4 get in. Top 4 match up with the 4 we got holding. We do the same process again. 4 get in, 4 move over, and so forth. We'll probably just do 2 rounds of that since we have so many teams in the field already. And then we'll kind of save some of that bubble talk for down the road, because obviously we've got games going on and so on and so forth. And then we'll jump to the top, which will be a lot of fun to start seeding those teams. We got any questions from anybody?
Not yet.
Nope.
All right. These guys are ready to start bracketing here.
We are ready.
All right. So let's first up. By the way, I forgot to mention this as well. Harry Miller became an internet sensation last year with his whiteboard, so it has returned again. You can see that he's got them all up there, ready to go.
Santa whiteboard over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whiteboard filled with many, many, many names of teams.
Hey, when we're done, can we get your autograph?
Yeah, sure. It's a scribble.
All right.
All right. So over here left, the teams in the field. Those are the ones that were voted in. So as we go down the list here, they're all in alphabetical order: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor, Creighton, Duke. I'm sorry, Auburn's not in there. I apologize. Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Baylor, Creighton, Duke, Gonzaga, Houston, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Kentucky, Marquette. As we move down to the bottom, we got Maryland, Miami, Michigan State, Missouri, Northwestern, Pittsburgh, Providence, Purdue, San Diego State, St. Mary's, TCU, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, UCLA, UConn, and Virginia and Xavier. So those are the teams that made it in on first ballot. Over here to the right are the teams we're going to be picking from here in a few minutes. Sorry about that. We have, you can see the list right there: Arizona, Auburn, Arizona State, Auburn, Boise State, Charleston, Cincinnati, Clemson, Dayton, Florida Atlantic, Memphis, Michigan, Michigan State, Nevada, New Mexico, North Carolina State. Man, have they ever been in the under consideration board? Crazy. North Carolina or North Texas, Oklahoma State, or Roberts, Penn State, Rutgers, Seton Hall, Texas Tech, Toledo, UAB, USC, Utah State, Vanderbilt, VCU, Villanova, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Some of those are probably incredible long shots, but we wanted to have a nice under consideration board to choose from. So we can, do we want to have any discussion about anything under consideration, or want to go right to a ballot? Because I think Graham's got a ballot ready for us.
Let's do it.
Let's go to the ballot.
All right, Graham, shoot that ballot out to everybody. We are going to pick 8 teams from the under consideration board. So make doubly sure that you pick only 8.
That's a big ballot.
It is a big ballot. So you might want to go through it a couple of times to make sure you have only 8 checked. But we'll be cutting it down by a third here.
Can you send us that spreadsheet?
After this one. Absolutely, I can.
You don't like my whiteboard?
Well, I do.
You just can't see it from here.
Right.
Ah.
I got my own
glasses.
whiteboard with a piece of paper, but
I got the glasses, but I still can't see it.
This would be a great time if we had any questions in the chat, but nobody's saying anything yet. Are there any teams that we want to discuss from this board? I mean, Rutgers, we were talking about them beforehand. Brad, you've got a lot of Rutgers experience. I have them, I have them as an 11 seed right now. I think they're slipping, but I think they would still be in. But go ahead, Brad.
I think Rutgers is slipping. I do have them actually as my last 8 seed at the moment, though. I think with the way everything's kind of turned out the last few days, they do have, the 3 bad losses, which is different than pretty much any other team in the field. One thing that does need to be taken into account for Rutgers is that one of their bad losses was without 2 starters. That came early in the season against Temple. And if you really dig deeper, one of them is against Seton Hall, who's I think around 80 on the net. So that just became a Q3. But ultimately, I think what keeps them a little bit higher is their win at Purdue. That high Q1 road win, which the committee has shown, in their reveal that they love. So I think without that win, they probably would be out. So for me, that's almost like a 3 seed bump for them. Now, granted, I can talk about Rutgers forever, so cut me off whenever you want. Granted, they haven't played particularly well with the injury to Mawap Mag. Pretty significant injury. They're not the same team. So we do need to judge them based on how they're playing now. They had a huge comeback against Penn State the other night, playing at Minnesota tonight. Let's see if they can take care of business. I think it'll be a good assessment. If they can blow out Minnesota on the road like everybody else does, feel a little bit better about them. If it's a close game, or obviously if it's a loss, that changes a lot of things.
ballot came through.
Okay. Yeah, because I had them in my last 4 in, I had a lot of Rutgers fans yelling at me the last couple of days. They're like, "Oh, we're
I've been
whatever they are."
I've been kind of watching that with how they've done lately to see, and kind of held them. They've been right along that high 9, low 8 cut line
Yeah.
for me, kind of waiting to see how this end of the season finishes out. But I guess the team I probably dropped more just recently is NC State, is in my last 4 in right now, because I did a look at it the other morning early. And if North Carolina beats Duke this weekend, North Carolina and NC State's resume basically look exactly the same, except actually North Carolina's might be slightly better because of their non-conference strength of schedule and the fact that they beat Michigan, et cetera. So, that really gave me a little bit of pause, not only just that they got, kind of blown out in their one game. Last night's loss doesn't really hurt, other than it's just they're kind of lacking in the win department. And their 2 biggest wins were at home, I believe. So that's one that's kind of slipped for me. Not that they played necessarily poorly, but just that their resume is starting to not hold up as well. And it's really comparable to some very other teams that I actually currently have on the bubble. So
I would agree with you, Dave. NC State has dropped to my last 4 in as well. They just have 2 wins over the field, and they're both at home. I think the only thing that's probably saving them right now is the fact that they don't have any Q3 or Q4 losses. And when you go through all the bubble teams, almost everybody has the bad losses. But like you said, North Carolina doesn't either. So they're on shaky ground for sure.
All right, I think everybody's got the ballot. So if you want to go ahead and select those 8, I got a feeling with this many teams we're picking from, we could have a great chance to have a tie.
We also have a question in the chat about Iowa. How do you handle a team like Iowa? We probably won't end up talking about them at all tonight, since they're in like the 6 seed range. And right now we're working on more bubble teams, and then we'll move to the 1s and 2 seeds. But just to keep us from having dead air, if anybody wants to say what they're feeling about Iowa right now, go for it.
I have not been able to figure them out November, December, January, February, and now March. I've not been able to figure them out.
Yeah.
That's what I would say about Iowa. They've been.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They've been in the middle of what I call the mush, which for me has been like anything from 24 to 39 on the seed list, the bottom 6 seed all the way to the highest of the 10s. And now even the 6 seed line's a little bit mushy with some of the results, like Northwestern losing at home, and Creighton lost their last game, and Kentucky loses to Vanderbilt. So even the 6 line's pretty mushy for me. So it'll all be reassessed as we go. I would say for Iowa, one of the biggest things they were missing, they did have the road win at Rutgers. Now a much more substantial elite road win in dominant fashion at Indiana is really nice to add to the top of the resume, especially when you're trying to cover up that loss to Eastern Illinois, one of the worst losses any tournament team will have, probably the worst. So that's the good side for Iowa now. I think that big of a blowout probably helped all their performance numbers. I think in this 6 to 10 range, the performance numbers probably mean a little bit more because it's just them being compared with a bunch of teams that are already going to be in. And then you look at one of the weaknesses is they've struggled mostly especially on the road, losing record in their toughest games in that first, if you want to do it by quad 1, that's fine. Still a losing record there. But as you go down, you can tell they're clearly a field team, but losing records in both the top 2 quads on the road and overall away neutral is a pretty poor record as well. So they might land around an 8 still. I think this morning I had them on the 7 line.
One thing I will add about Iowa, so that loss to Eastern Illinois, they were missing Chris Murray,
and McCaffrey,
as well as Connor McCaffrey, right?
Yep.
And that's their only bad loss of the season. Look, obviously you don't discount that loss because it happened. But the fact that they didn't have 2 starters for that game is significant. They do have 13 quad 1 and quad 2 wins, which, nobody has that. That's not, like a top 4 seed at the moment. So I think that's a significant number.
Yep.
Just a couple items to note.
Yeah. And as the mid, and I guess probably am I the low major representative or just the mid major? Can I have the low majors?
You can have them all, Bronco. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
I have Mountain West. I don't know where we classify them.
I'll let you guys decide. I'm not getting in the middle of that. But as the Ohio Valley Conference representative, I can tell you guys, Eastern Illinois was so bad they didn't even qualify for the Ohio Valley Conference tournament. So Iowa's walk-ons should have been able to win that game.
Yes,
Where?
I think
That's true.
maybe.
The Ohio Valley.
Remind me though, was that a game? I'd have to go back and look at the date. Was that date played right before the Christmas break?
It was.
Either
Because it's
yeah,
a little
right
bit like
before
what
or
happened to
during it.
Arizona State at San Francisco, right? Hurley schedules that road game.
Yeah.
That was on
Yeah, it
the
was December
21st.
21st.
Road game right before Christmas break, traveled up there, and they just basically weren't mentally ever showed up and got blown out by 30 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
40.
again, it doesn't take away from the loss. To your point, Rocco,
Yep.
they could have been down 3 starters and probably still at home should have been able to win that game.
Mhm.
But, occasionally you just have one of those nights where it's just, they're not there for whatever reason. And Eastern Illinois Super Bowl outside of playing Illinois at home,
Right. Yeah, and it's just one piece of the puzzle, and I only really mentioned it because I'm saying with Iowa getting a great road win at Indiana now,
Yeah.
especially in dominant fashion, that really kind of makes up for it and then some. Not that they were not going to get in without that. It's just telling their whole story. It's an interesting story because they've had that loss be a part of their story, and then really not a good road team until that big win starts covering up a lot of the holes they had. So
Okay,
Not-
here's some score updates. Michigan up 2 against Illinois. Liberty down 13 in the first half to Eastern Kentucky.
Whoops.
Colgate's up 21 on Loyola, Maryland. Rutgers up 8 in the first half. And Wichita State is up 6 at Houston.
oh
Hey, Rocco, we just need your ballot and then we're good to go.
yeah, I'm just got distracted there. Thanks, Graham.
We let you talk, and now you got to fill it in. I would add on Iowa. I think, like we were saying, you don't ignore the loss, but I think it hurts less than, say, Michigan's full strength loss to Central Michigan. That's where it kind of comes in, just because it is really their only significant misstep. And as the original Iowa commenter noted, right before Christmas break, game got moved up because of a snowstorm. They were down 2 guys. Like it was a messy situation. But yeah, that's a game they should certainly have won. But because it's the only bad loss, I kind of am more willing to write it off. After they beat Rutgers twice by 11 when Rutgers was still healthy. So
I mean, you can't really do this perfectly, but sometimes, if you say, okay, I'm going to take away the team's very best performance of the year and their very worst performance of the year, chances are who they really are is
Right.
what's left. So if you only have one really good thing or one really bad thing, it's kind of, you can't overcount the one really good and you can't overcount the one really bad.
Yeah.
What kind of stinks for Iowa too is with Indiana losing, they dropped 10 points in the net. So now when you look at their resume, they've only got one top 25 win. When at one time I think they had 3 or 4. Crazy. They did sweep Indiana. I mean, that's kind of like Kerry's point. Yeah, if you have a bad loss, but when you turn around, flip around, look on the other side of the team sheet and see how many quality top-notch wins they have, that easily wipes it out.
was it Iowa who lost to Southeast Oklahoma State back in 2015? But I remember talking to one of the committee members back then. I mean, he didn't give me a hard line in the sand that it's, X number of wins makes up for one bad loss, but it does seem like 3 quality wins you need to make up for every bad loss. So I think Iowa has more than done that, which is why we have them comfortably in as a single digit seed.
Yeah. How do you qualify a bad loss? Obviously,
Right.
Q4 is maybe like a slam dunk bad loss, but like for me, bubble teams, I look 2B or worse is a bad loss in my opinion. That's the one those are the ones I list out by hand.
Yeah.
And when you start to see teams on the bubble, like I'll throw you a couple examples. Stupid zooms in my face, but yeah, obviously you got, you got Boise State with 3. You've got New Mexico with 4. You've got Utah State with 3. So those are teams. There's a bunch of them. You've got 4 here with Clemson, if you want to count them as a possibility. So again, yeah, it's just interesting. Where do you draw the line? I tend to draw the line. I think 2B is fair because if you lose at home to a team, in the high, close to the 100 range, that's a bad loss if you're a tournament team. And then a road loss, you get a lot more cushion. You have to lose to somebody in like the 200s or 160 plus, I think it is. So
I just don't think the committee looks at bad losses like the general public does. They don't really, unless a team starts accumulating them.
Right.
I would say a good win is way better than a bad loss.
Typically.
All right, we got a tie here.
Yep.
So we need to vote for 3 teams, I guess, or two
Teams
out
for
of the
2
3.
spots. Graham, do you just want everybody to shoot you a text on those 2? Since it's a smaller.
Yep, I think it's easiest if everybody just texts me 2 of the 3 teams listed there.
All right, great.
Done deal.
I probably should do this, but I don't want him to have to put that number out on the chat screen. So Tim, if I text it to you, will you text it on to Graham? I have everybody's number in the group chat, but I don't have everybody's name next to their
Send
phone.
it to me. Send it to me.
What
That's
are you,
fine.
John Calipari? You just don't keep names in your phone?
No, I got most of them, but for whatever reason, I never attached Graham's number.
I'm the same way.
Well, I delete his number every day. He'd text.
All right, there it is.
And I'll get it from you. I'll send you something, hey, Graham, here in a little bit, and you can send it to me. We don't want to.
It's on the you put it in the Zoom chat here. Not the YouTube chat, the Zoom chat that only we can see.
Yeah.
Secret stuff.
So we've got 6 of our 8 that we will be voting on in a ordered format to put the next 4 teams into the selected group of, what do we have, 34 in so far? So
Yes, sir. Okay, so we had Boise, Florida Atlantic,
Go Owls.
Memphis,
Mississippi State, Rutgers, USC,
yep.
and then whatever we vote on here. Yeah, I would just add, I think historically, proving who you can beat tends to matter more than who you can lose to, unless, like you said, if you find you can lose to a lot of bad teams, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Or if you're kind of cut in the middle, you have one good win, one bad loss, but then a lot of kind of questionable stuff in the middle, that doesn't look particularly convincing either.
It sounds like Wisconsin.
Yeah. The old win-loss do-si-do team.
I just like for strictly educational purposes here. And Brad, I'm not saying you did this at all, but sometimes when the brackets announced, you're like, how in the world did that team, But what you don't see is the conversation goes on inside the committee. And there could be 1 or 2 very strong proponents and voices for Team A. And
Yep.
they can sway some people. It happens.
It's the groupthink dynamic. It's really what makes the process so fascinating.
And while it's slightly different every single year.
Yeah, exactly.
And because there's always a
Exactly.
couple new personalities, and you're never, I think we all kind of said, yeah, for the most part, when the reveal that the teams made sense, maybe with the exception of one
Yeah.
or two, but the order in a couple of them, we were like, okay.
How'd they land there? Yeah.
Or I
Are
guess
we-
that, it's kind of like then we'll get into the vote, but like with the whole Houston and Kansas thing, it's like, if you just think Houston's better, then just say as a committee, we discussed it and we just think Houston is a better team. But it kind of sounds a little funny when you say they're one road win at Virginia, who
Yeah.
shortly after that went on couldn't score 50 points in a game. That just kind of said you're looking at all these Kansas wins. But
Yeah, I think that's my one, and maybe just because I'm an old guy, but I just wish wins were valued more. There's all this, they got this Q1 and this Q2. Yeah, but they won 20. They went out there and they won 23 times when they rolled the ball on the court. And it's not easy.
no.
And sometimes I was joking the other day. I saw one of these blind resumes. They didn't even put the records of the teams down. I'm like, isn't this where we start here? It's just, call me kooky, but
Winning still matters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
What do we got, Graham?
guarantee that was somebody who uses Bar Torvik, because that doesn't have the overall record. I have to bring it in from a different source and bring in the conference from a different source.
If I just read, be wonderful.
Yep.
Auburn and Nevada. All right. So there are our teams. I'll pop this up in a second.
We have our 8.
Interesting. So you're saying we need to put Santa Clara on the board because they've won 23 games, Tim. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's get the Broncos in there.
Southern
That
Miss.
That league, it's
So,
not easy.
yeah, I'd much honestly, if I wasn't guessing the committee, it was just my opinion. I'd much rather have those teams in than a West Virginia team or an Oklahoma State team I've seen lose 1,000 times. These are winning pedigree programs.
Yep.
I know I'm going to get some disagreement there, but I'm just saying.
I still have Santa Clara on my list.
There we go, Shelby. Don't
Well,
worry, I'm not going to bring that opinion to our group. It's just
It was just you. I got to know how to decide for Rocco.
But there is something to be said though for the. I think that we've got into this a little bit last year, and we probably will here in some of our discussions, particularly when it comes to some seeding in some of those final teams. Is what is your chances of when you have a chance to beat a quality team? What's your winning percentage against those quality teams? Not just how many chances did you get. It's kind of like a hitter, right? Well, if I go to the plate 20 times, and I get 4 hits, that's a percentage, right? Well, so I got 4. Well, some other team only got 5 of them, and they won 2 of them. Well, that's a better percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So that and that's not equal to equal, but sometimes that has to be a little bit part of the equation. Some teams get 20 cracks at it and they win 3. That's not necessarily. And they got them, and a lot of them they got them at home, and the other teams didn't really get them at home either.
Yeah, I think that's what the committee chair said a few years ago when Belmont got in as an at-large. That's how he put it, basically. They had fewer chances, but they won more than they lost.
That bodes well for Charleston.
Yep.
But one thing about Belmont's resume,
Oral
that, if I recall, they were over 500 against Q1 and Q1 plus Q2 opponents. Whereas Charleston this year, they don't have that. So it is a little bit different. But that year that Belmont got in was a surprise to me, at least.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic's probably a little closer to what something like that would be this year.
Right.
That's a good segue, Dave. Let's talk about Florida Atlantic now that we're looking at our 8 options.
Who's seen them the most? Who's
this? I've been
I have
there.
Well, yeah, of course you have.
Oh, I wanted to move in after that game. Yeah, so Florida Atlantic, you guys just want to hear about them in general. As a team, they're completely set up to succeed in the tournament. It's a group of guys that stuck together for 3+ years, a handful of them for 4. one incoming transfer from UConn and Gaffney, whom you guys from the Big East would know. But he doesn't even play that big of a role, but he's part of the 8-man rotation. The thing I love about him is they got a 7-1 guy. A lot of people know Vlad Golden. He's got pro potential, but there's certain matchups where they need a wider body. They got a guy, Rosario, that backs him up, 6'9", 260 plus, just a beefy dude. They used him more to beat UAB. And so Dusty May is just a tactician coach. He'll be at probably a high major very soon, tied to both the Ole Miss and Georgia Tech rumors right now. But I mean, they just do a phenomenal job no matter what. They get all types of teams in Conference USA. And that's going to set up wonderfully, I think, for the NCAAs. I mean, they could get a bad draw. That's always possible. But this team is built to be a second weekend team for sure. And I just can't wait to see them get there. I think it gets exhausting for a team like them to have to play every single night, knowing that if they lose, this whole at-large thing falls apart a little bit. So they've been able to pass almost all those tests. They did have a couple close calls and one slip up at Middle Tennessee lately. They survived an OT scare from La Tech. But overall, in the non-conference, they were nearly perfect. They did take a loss to Ole Miss. That doesn't look good anymore. But on that day, Michael Forrest was out, a very key player at the time. He was playing about 32 minutes a game in the non-league. His role is about 25 minutes a game now. And then you look at the win at Gainesville. Obviously, Florida was full strength, probably an NIT level team before Castleton got hurt. And so that's a huge win for them that they're anchoring with in their non-league play. And overall, they've just lost a couple of times. So unless disaster strikes here at the end, they should be in the field, in my opinion.
They swept North Texas too. That's not a bad school at all.
They swept North Texas and split with UAB.
Yeah, I think UAB was probably the preseason favorite coming in, and certainly I've said this before. I think that if FAU, North Texas, or UAB gets in, neither of those three is going to be a fun first round opponent for somebody.
No.
So I think they kind of get the top. The problem with a lot of these leagues is Conference USA is a little better because there's a decent middle ground in there. It's not just one or two teams at the top and bad, and I don't know whether this comes into play or not. And it's not, certainly when you're a school like Florida Atlantic, you don't always have all these opportunities to do it. But, if they end up getting close to that bubble, that their non-conference strength of schedule is not, it's not comparable to what like a Murray State had a few years ago, or even last year in terms of their non-conference strength. And again, that's not necessarily, I don't know that anybody necessarily thought FAU was going to be quite this good. So they maybe, but they did get a game at Florida and Ole Miss, and they went 1-1 in those games. So I think that's, if they'd have lost both of those games, I think we're maybe having a bit of a different discussion here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they thought I actually helped them with their schedule in the offseason. And so I know they thought Bryant was going to be a lot better. Bryant was supposed to be right at the top with Vermont in that league, end up being like in the 200s. They thought Gulf Coast would be a lot better. Gulf Coast opened the season with a win at USC, in fact, but they end up being 10th place in the ASUN. And so some of these plans kind of backfired. I agree. They probably should have added another game or two if they could have. Florida was pissed off that they even had to play them. But that was because Mike White, who went to Georgia last year, scheduled the game and it was contracted. And funny enough, Mike White is where Dusty May came from. He's a Mike White disciple. So, but yeah, in the end of the day, I don't know how hard the committee looks at that stuff, or hopefully for the Owls' sake, they don't look into them too closely and they're just in. But I think what you hear committee members and chairmen say on the interviews is intent to schedule is really what they look at. And I do know the Owls intended to schedule well. I can say that. But again, they probably could have found maybe one or two, even if they couldn't get a Power 5 team, maybe an A10 team or a Mountain West team or something like that. They could have maybe done a little bit more.
So what you're saying, if you'd have done a better job, they'd had a better.
Yeah.
quality.
Hey,
I
can't force them to play anybody. I can just bring them options and let them make a decision. So
Uh-huh.
if I had
it's
the power to
interesting.
make them play, we would have the best non-conference games ever, guys. I promise.
Nice
It's
CYA.
interesting. Sorry.
I said nice CYA answer.
All right,
Uh,
everybody, sent you 8 teams to go ahead and rank in order.
Do we want to talk about any others?
Yeah, before
Yeah.
we do
Is
that.
there a way for me to share my screen? Like I have a spreadsheet. We can just look at all 8 of them at the same time. I don't know how Zoom works.
I think you can share a screen.
Yeah, I've got it open for others to share. So let me stop sharing. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, what does that mean? Shoot.
Should just hit the share screen, then it should like you choose.
Oh, share
which one.
screen. There, that big one. Yeah, that's great.
Then it should give you a. There we go.
So, you see it? Yeah.
There we go. Oh, beautiful.
So I think Mississippi State kind of jumps out because they got those 2 quad 1A wins, but they also kind of jump out because they have the worst resume metrics of the bunch.
Yeah.
Only USC has a bad loss. I forget who that is. That
Florida Gulf
South
Coast.
Dakota State.
Florida
Gulf
Gulf
Coast. That's
Coast.
right.
No, they did lose to South Dakota State too.
USC did not. No.
No,
That's-
that's right.
that's Boise.
They lost
That's
to
Boise.
Oregon State, right?
Boise
Yeah.
lost to Charlotte and South Dakota State.
Yep, they lost a road Beaver game.
You know, I'm kind of one of those that's gotten a little bit, not, I won't say high, but USC's kind of creeped up off the immediate cut line for me, you know, when just when I'm looking at some of the other bubble teams around, but it's a little bit dependent too. I mean, they did beat Auburn, but they've fallen back a little bit. So, you know, I think a road win at Arizona State.
That helped. It looks a lot better now. Yeah.
Utah's not an easy place to go win. Colorado's been missing some players of late too. I think the last couple of games they've had a couple starters out, 2 or 3. So I don't know, you know, that I think when USC beat them there, Colorado was missing a couple of starters in that game.
Yeah, you do kind of see that Mountain West is, if you look at some other Mountain West teams, maybe not New Mexico because they've lost a lot of games, but it really is, you know, the travel's brutal. And so you can kind of rack that up on the home, the home schedules, the home records that they have. You know, you see a couple of them here, 13-1, 13-0. I mean, it's just, a lot of that's just attributed to the travel. It's going altitude, you're going to plains, you're going all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
and for me, Mississippi State, one thing that's also kind of moved them up a little bit, like a little bit with USC, is, they didn't have a great non-conference schedule, but amongst those wins are Marquette and TCU, which are 2 teams that figure to probably be among the top 5 seeds somewhere here in a couple of weeks. So those are 2 strong non-conference wins. Also, the win at Arkansas, it's never easy to go to Bud Walton Arena and win.
That's the most impressive win to me.
And really, honestly, outside of that trip to Georgia, they've been pretty, overtime loss at Missouri, beat Missouri at home. Again, we're not talking about a top 4 seed here, but I think Mississippi State's resume is maybe a little bit better than what it definitely has improved a lot in the last couple of weeks, with a couple of wins that they've, put together.
I don't think there's any question in watching them. Okay, they're playing much better now than they were 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna Rocco's gonna love me for this after giving him a hard time. I want to tell you, I know that it shows, and by the way, Carrie, great. That's awesome. I love that. I do that when I break down teams. It just takes me forever to put the date in there. But
yeah, I wish I had strength of schedule on there, but I didn't get that.
Thank you for having the record right up front. I'm just I know we're not looking at numbers here and I'm just talking, but around the country, people are kind of looking at Mount West. I'm telling you, there's some really good teams. There's some really good teams this year in that conference.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of it, and man, they've been entertaining games.
And
Yeah.
they can play different styles. They're, that Nevada team is really good.
Hey, Joe's on TV.
What's that?
Joe's on TV.
Joey Brackets.
Oh, he must
Yep.
have got done with his golf. That's good to know.
He's
Oh,
still
he's
wearing a
dark.
golf.
Okay.
He's lining up a putt right now. So
What about like, can we have a little conversation on Memphis? Seems like we have this conversation every year.
Yep. Yeah, I actually did a interview last night with the Memphis beat writer about them. I don't know. I know they've been kind of drifting in this like 10-11 range for most of us for a long time, and that's just because they've got a mix of results. They don't, as Dave said, they don't get all the at bats that a lot of the teams they're compared with do get. I think the things to like about what Memphis has been able to do is in that quad 2 area, they've gone and they beat just a large group of road games with Cincinnati, Vandy, Wichita, Temple, not being easy places to win. Obviously, none of those 4 are tournament wins. And they lost their top 3 road games, which were Houston, Bama, which were big opportunities, and then UCF in overtime. But I think Memphis has been consistent enough to certainly warrant selection. They remind me a little bit of Miami last year, even though it's a little bit different profile, just from the standpoint of they played how many SEC teams? 4 SEC teams, and they beat 3 of them, and the only loss was Alabama by 3. So basically, and the Texas A&M win has aged like fine wine. Auburn win has not aged, but I think overall there's just a lot of solid. It also reminds me of Davidson last year. Davidson in Miami kept falling down by the bubble, if you guys remember last year. But for me, I thought the resume was so clean for both of them that even if they fell into Dayton or something, the committee was going to take them. That's where I'm at with this Memphis resume right now.
Yeah, I was saying a team like Memphis in a conference like the AAC, I don't pay as much attention to the quad 1 just because, like you said, Rock, I don't get that. I was starting to look at that quad 2 and the depth of the quad 2 and how, they're handling their business for the most part there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm sure, but those are conference games, some of those games in there. That's not easy to go on the road and win conference games. We all know that.
They beat Nebraska by 12, and Nebraska's playing better now. So again, that one's aging a little bit better. Again, it's like not going to get them into the tournament, but you start getting enough of these clustered together, and they've got 7 of them in the full quad 2, 2 of them in the top half. Again, and there's just not much bad. I get that they've lost 3 of them outside of 2B. Home loss to Tulane. They got swept by Tulane. That team gave them a lot of trouble. And then they lost a game to St. Louis on the road, and a 1-point loss to Seton Hall, which I think was the buzzer beater game when Seton Hall made a buzzer beater. So in general, I think the resume metrics really love Memphis too. They're 24th
Right.
this morning. So that to me tells me there's really no risk of them not making it.
Yeah.
Right.
24th strength of record, 48th non-conference strength of schedule, 9-6 quads 1 plus quad 2.
Yeah.
Don't have any quad 4 losses and just the 1 Q3 loss. I think when you're, when you look at that resume, by itself, it's nothing impressive. Well, again, the Texas A&M win is solid. The Auburn win on a neutral court is a good win, not as good as it once was. But ultimately, you're comparing them to every other team, every other bubble team. And I think right now, with those strong metrics, it's hard to put more teams below them than above them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
A little bit unfortunate for us is it'll probably come too late in the day to really make a change, but we're not going to see the result of that Houston-Memphis game.
Yeah.
Well, the only other thing I would say is I think sometimes it can get a little bit overlooked when you start getting to some of these resumes that look very, very, similar at where we are in this discussion right now. But, a team that also wins a lot of games against, they're not going to be tournament teams, but they're still decent in quad 3. There's a lot of teams that are fall into that quad 3 category that they're not great, but you're not beating 200 plus teams in quad 4 at home either. So when you start looking, you do start looking at Memphis and saying, well, they are, 16-7, I think it is, against the top 3 quadrants.
Yeah.
That it's another one of those little things. It's not like, okay, that's going to get you in, but you start looking at what if some other teams piled up against those top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then even against a team like this is a different discussion. But like when you start talking about Maryland at some point for seeding, what do you do for a team that's been really good at home, but is 2-7 on the road? And those 2 wins, I believe, are Minnesota and
Louisville.
Louisville.
Oh,
So, so I mean, that versus a Memphis, it has gone and they've won some top 100 games on the road, even though they're not quad 1s.
What I like about it is they've got something not really unique, but something you don't see other teams have. They've got a tougher out of conference as opposed to in conference. It's their strength of schedule is 80, but their non-conference is 48. That usually those numbers are flipped. It's a bigger number for out of conference, and they didn't. And that's impressive.
Well, and in fairness to them, I think at the beginning of the season, on top of that, St. Louis, I believe, was either them or Dayton was a co-favorite to win the A10,
Mm-hmm.
and St. Louis just never got it together this year. Seton Hall was kind of thought to be as a tournament team back in November, or at least a potential tournament team. So yeah, those are 2 close losses, one on the road, one on neutral. But at the time, they just haven't panned out. But
Right.
But you give them credit for scheduling those games. Or getting
And
in
also
there.
to add to Memphis, in their game at Houston, they were missing Kendrick Davis, who's averages 21 points a game, and they put up a fight.
Yeah.
Lost by 8 points at Houston, who is #1 seed right now. And I think that, even though it's a loss, I think that in itself is very impressive.
Yeah. It's a deep old team. It's a lot different than the Memphis of all the previous years with Penny. They got all old dudes. Kendrick Davis is what, 24? There's a lot of dudes that are 23 and older on that team. So
I just want to take one more look at this. I gotta admit, this is a little bit, this grouping right here is a little bit tougher than I thought it might be.
I'd be curious to get it. I'd be curious for people to pull up, like, say, Boise and Nevada side by side, and see, because it's one of those that I go back and forth on all the time to see, what the collective group think is on, not that right now we're just comparing those 2, but if you're looking at Boise and Nevada, in a lot of ways, they're kind of similar. So I'm curious to hear what everybody else thinks about whatever the variances are or the differences in their opinions on Nevada. That Boise, the computers seem to like them a little bit better. So I'm just kind of curious to get what the group thinks on Boise and Nevada.
yeah, I can jump in. I actually wrote about it on my blog post on Monday, that exact comparison. So can jump back into that. But yeah, I think the optical thing, when you just start diving in, is to lean Nevada because they've got the 4 quad 1s to Boise's 2. But you do take a look deeper. 2 of those are wins against New Mexico, a team that I think most of us agree are on the outside looking in at this point. I'm not saying they're out of it. They still have a path possibly to get in, but that kind of hurt Nevada just a little bit on top of their loss to Wyoming this week. And so, then you got to go, I think you got to go a little bit deeper. That's what I've done. Even if you just take that top, 1.5 categories through the 2A, that's where Boise really starts to stand out, 8-4 versus Nevada's 5-6. Again, like you, Dave, trying to find a commonality of at bats and a good enough amount of games. And then you look at the 2 tournament, they each have 2 wins against the field. both of the wins for Nevada are on their home court, whereas one of the ones for Boise is on a neutral against Texas A&M in what felt like a meaningless consolation game and now aged like a great win. And so again, these are very subtle differences. I think the comparison is very close, but those were the main reasons. I have actually deeper reasons, because I think Nevada's obviously they don't have the bad losses that Boise has. Boise's got a loss to Charlotte in that same event, South Dakota State at home, and there's one other one that's questionable. But again, I think they would both be probably just in, but who's higher on the board, you could debate either way. For me, it's just Boise for some of those reasons.
Yeah, and I just as a quick follow-up, and I'll let somebody else jump in. I kind of lean slightly toward Boise just based on the fact of, yeah, they have the one more Q3 loss, but they're they have a much stronger record in Quad 2. 3 more wins in Quad 2. And so I think that's a slight bump. And then the other thing I would say is that those, their non-conference, the Texas A&M, the Colorado win, the win at St. Louis, which again, this is earlier in the year when we thought St. Louis was going to be pretty good. I would, again, it's close, but I would probably lean slightly that way. Just because, again, a couple of their notable wins are away from home.
I would agree with that. I do lean Boise State as well. Going back to what the committee seems to do over the years, especially when your key wins are just in conference, that's one thing. When you have key wins in conference and you also are a mid-major and you have one of those out of conference wins like Boise State does against Texas A&M on a neutral court, I think that's a difference maker, and probably the difference maker for me when comparing those two resumes.
It's funny is when I was putting my bracket together, I started on Sunday, so I didn't have Nevada's loss to Wyoming, didn't have Boise State's win over San Diego State. It was very clear Nevada, like 2 full seed lines ahead of Boise State. Now I think I do have Boise a little bit ahead of Nevada, and pretty much based on everything we've been saying. But it's funny how much can change for a team in the Mountain West that didn't have that many opportunities, whereas West Virginia got that big win over Iowa State. It's like, oh, I guess we'll move them up 2 spots now because it slightly changes their overall Q1 resume.
Yeah, and in fact, when I was reading off that, I realized I didn't update. I had Nevada's update because I mentioned the Wyoming loss. I didn't update Boise's with the San Diego State, so I actually had Boise above Nevada before the San Diego State win. I think that win probably puts them even higher above Nevada to go on top of what I was saying at the start.
Yeah, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, around that, I thought Nevada was the second best team in that league, but I did notice something that the back end of the schedule was much more favorable to Boise, and that's kind of played out here,
Yeah, even though they lost to San Jose State, my boys.
Right.
Tim Miles.
That's right.
Yeah.
That just happened on Saturday. It wasn't even that long ago.
I just looked at it and said, hey, they've got that home game with San Diego State coming, and
that's a tough place to win.
And they had a home game with New Mexico, so I knew that back end was going to be more favorable to them with some other teams that had to go on the road. So
yeah, I think funny enough, the only time Boise State has lost at home was South Dakota State. They're perfect at home in the Mountain West.
Score updates. Illinois up 2 on Michigan at half. Liberty down 2 at half to Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Colgate up 17 at it's in second half now. Rutgers up 11. Houston and Wichita State are tied, and Iona is up 10 at half.
Obviously, it's going to be big for Rutgers if they hold on, and more importantly, hold on by a lot, because it's twofold. You avoid getting that 4th bad loss, and you pretty much avoid the possibility of having to play Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament. They finished the season at home against Northwestern, which is a Q2. So I think that's very important for their sake.
That they get to play Minnesota or avoid Minnesota?
Yeah,
So they would avoid Minnesota.
Why
So they
would you
would
wanna
they should
avoid
avoid
Minnesota?
being in the bottom four of the Big Ten tournament if they
Oh,
if they win
I
today.
hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Michigan State got to avoid Minnesota. Tom Izzo acted like he was pissed off, but he's got to be thrilled they didn't have to reschedule that game.
Yeah, I mean it's a great thing for NCAA tournament purposes, but I think the way he looked at it was for Big Ten seeding purposes.
Yeah,
he wants that extra win, but what's more important?
Right.
Exactly.
Graham, where are we at on voting? I
We
sent
are-
mine in a while ago.
Oh, I haven't even
Well, let me
voted yet.
send mine in if we're done having our
Yeah, I
discussion.
thought we were still discussing here. I
Yeah,
was
we're
just
still
kinda
waiting on a lot of
looking.
that.
I haven't
Alright.
really looked in the last week here closely, drilled down at Auburn and Mississippi State, comparison side by side.
Well, I need a refill. You guys discuss.
I'm not sold on Auburn. I mean, 2-9 against quad one opponents, first of all. I mean, you compare that to everybody else, that's just bad. It's really bad. They've been close a number of times, but a loss is a loss. And just like, they lost by 30 at Kentucky, almost took Alabama to overtime. They're both losses though. They finished the season against Tennessee. They need that win, in my opinion. But that 2-9 record without any top tier wins. They have one Q&A win.
No, they beat number 15 Arkansas.
They beat number 15 Arkansas. Okay, at home. Yeah.
That's
It's a good win. It's a good win.
top
We're
15
not
win.
gonna discount that.
It's now granted, Arkansas is not exactly 28-3,
Correct.
I'll be right back.
Did anybody at all see that Northwestern game? That must have been
That was
water
brutal.
torture.
I was tracking it. I didn't really have it all the way on, but that'll happen sometimes with Northwestern.
That's epically bad though. 43-42. That's
Yeah, I mean, they might have had a few slushies the night before. They were in Cancun, I believe. I
yeah, I think so.
think that's what
Yeah.
just happened to Old Dominion. I don't know if you guys saw, but they just ended the game in the 30s in the conference tournament.
Really? Wow.
Are you allowed to advance if you do that?
Not in this case. They got pounded by a bad team. 11 seed.
I think for
Still need
Auburn
the,
to look at the other side of it, what's keeping them afloat for me is the fact that their metrics are all top 40 in the country. And that's important. Non-conference strength of schedule is 80. Just the one bad loss. But for me, they're not safe.
Yeah, the computers love them. That's all you can say.
Mhm.
Matched up to that resume.
Yeah, I think the sneaky thing about Auburn's resume, Brad's highlighted the bad and done a really good job of that. I would say the sneaky good part is kind of like what Dave was saying. The SEC, you still get a lot of opportunities, don't get me wrong, but you're not getting that every single night quad one thing that Big 12 has and somewhat Big 10 has. So SEC is clearly like a tier below those two leagues. So they've got a ton of data in Q2 and Q3. And in both of those combined, they're 14-2. So that means they're handling their business on nights they could slip up for the most part. I think their only real bad loss is at Georgia in Athens on a road game. So again, that's when you're starting to compare with all the fringy bubble squads, I still like Auburn more than most of them because they've got that depth.
Hey, FY, if you haven't filled out one of these ranking bubble ballots yet, make sure when you're done, you look at the bottom, you shouldn't have any kind of red warning on the bottom. If you do, that means you pick too many in one section.
Well, we know what Tim's up to. You guys still need me
And, you
sharing
know,
this
to-
spreadsheet, or are you good?
You know, to Rocco's point, I mean, the other thing that's, you know, it certainly Auburn is put themselves in a position where, you know, their margin for error has certainly slipped away. They've had a couple of opportunities now. You know, they beat Tennessee at home this weekend, and
No
combined with
Ziegler.
everything else, that probably leaves them in a pretty decent spot. But, you know, if you're talking about wins, you know, we were talking about this earlier a little bit with NC State and some others. If you are talking about wins against the field, you know, Auburn would have probably 4 of them right now, depending on what we ultimately do with Mississippi State. But, you know, home win against Arkansas, that was pretty strong.
Yep.
You know, that early win against Northwestern, which we didn't think of much at the time, but it's, you know, held up pretty well. You know, not a great win, but it still counts. And then home wins over Mississippi and Missouri. The one thing that would be nice that they don't really have is a good true road win.
And they're done. No more chances.
You know, I mean, they did lose at Georgia, but their road wins are LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss. You know, now that early win at Washington is not bad. I mean, Washington's not a horrible team at home. So,
Thanks, Dave.
but yeah, I mean, so, you know, and then, you know, Bradley is, you know, won the regular. You know, I realize that Valley's not as strong as it's been, but you still beat an eventual regular season champ of that league pretty handily. So those are the positives for Auburn. If they can either beat Tennessee or win a couple of games at the SEC tournament and don't just, you know, look bad at home against Tennessee and lose by 15 points and then lose I think then they could be in some trouble.
Yeah.
Because you know what's going to happen. We're going to lose at least 1 or 2 at-large spots.
Yep. 100%.
Because I think it's certainly not impossible that UAB or North Texas could win Conference USA tournament.
Yep.
So that potentially takes 1 if we feel Florida Atlantic's in. And
ACC
Villanova.
could have,
you know, who knows what could happen in the ACC or
American maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what if? Yeah, I mean, there for a while I thought UCF was playing pretty well, but they've kind of, you know, fallen out of the mix. But
Yep.
would you put it past, you know, Tulane or Temple or somebody to get hot for a couple of days? I mean, it's possible.
UCF has a lottery pick, Taylor Hendricks. I mean, the kid is freaking good. I covered one of their games, and yeah, they've lost a lot of close games, and they're out of the at-large picture for sure. But they can hang. I mean, they can hang. They took it to Memphis when they beat them. So that might be but yeah, Temple's tricky, as Houston will tell you, and Tulane's tricky when they want to be.
Not bad.
But to your larger point with Auburn, you know, just coming from an analyst perspective with that Tennessee matchup at home, they got to get that win. Ziegler's out for the season, and Auburn's a really tough building to win in, regardless of where they're at right now in their season. And you know, Auburn outplayed Alabama for 39 minutes last night. They probably should have iced the game with 3 minutes to go. That fight kind of screwed things up. The brawl they had, and you know, Bruce Pearl went bananas. I would have probably too if I were him, because but anyway, a loss is a loss, and here they are still in this situation. But again, they've got to turn the page quick. They've got a shorthanded Tennessee team coming, and they just got to get that win. Put this thing to bed.
Brad, once we get your ballot, we'll be ready to tabulate.
Oh, yes, working on it right now.
Busted.
Yay, it wasn't me.
Carrie, who was she's done it for years, and I see her always sitting courtside at the Final Four. Who is the gal that was when we go to the mock selection? She's up there running the tabulations, and she's always like, Tim, Carrie, need it now.
I don't
Remember her? She was up running it. She was kind of at the front of the room with Warlock, and
I remember.
she's been doing it for years.
I remember Gavitt was there.
Yeah,
I don't remember
she was just sitting behind a computer.
Yeah.
You know,
Dana Thomas?
what's that?
Dana Thomas, or was the first name Dana maybe?
Dana Jacobson was at our mock
Dana
committee.
Jacobson was there.
Joyce Rickert. I'm bringing these names up from memory. Me and Graham were on Super 10 back in 12, and Dave the Warlock was in the room with us for the whole thing.
Well, I don't think Minnesota's going to pull it off tonight. So they're probably
Hey,
Rutgers is up 14 now on the road. So unless they find a way to give up a 14 lead in about 12 minutes, they should be all right.
Yeah.
Are you trying to steal Shelby's job?
Yeah, he is.
All right, so we are crunching numbers behind the scenes here, I believe.
Houston up 8 now.
Yeah.
Liberty's still down 2.
They're down 2?
Yeah.
We've had 2 questions about Tennessee in the chat. I don't know if we want to save that until later tonight.
Yeah, we might get to that. We got it's 8:20 Eastern, so we kind of want to be. We're gonna right after this. We're gonna pick 8 again from the under consideration, so you can kind of be looking at that.
Yep.
And then we want to get that one more vote. We kind of want to get that wrapped up by around 9, if not a little bit before, so we can be onto the seating by the time Joe joins us. So.
Now, will we be choosing 8 again, or will be 4, and then the 4 or 8 and the top 4 join the 4?
We're gonna choose 8, and then the top 4 will join the other 4, and we have 4 right here: FAU, Rutgers, Memphis, Boise.
So FAU, Rutgers, Memphis, and Boise.
Yes.
So that means our holdovers are Mississippi State, USC, Auburn, and Nevada, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes, the relatively new term, holding cross-country teams. So
A temporary bracketology member here.
So when Graham, whenever you're ready, if you want to send out that ballot of the 20, there should be 26 left now in the under consideration, and we have to pick 8 of those.
Welcome to Groundhog's Day. Oh, wow.
Minnesota's cut it to 8.
Like Houston's pulled up ahead by 12 now.
What is it? Clark Kellogg would say, spurtability.
I like that.
Sounds something from a bad movie.
Or a really good movie.
We have that too.
Man.
So I just want to mention we're sponsored by Godfather's Pizza Pie, piled high. 1,200 locations across the country. check them out. Go to godfathers.com. They will deliver to your area. They got great pizzas, but they've also got wings, cheese stick, garlic bread, potato wedges, and then the desserts we mentioned earlier too, the cinnamon monkey bread, the cinnamon apple cherry streusel are fantastic. So when you get ready for the hoops games here, coming down the stretch, next week, conference tournament week, and then of course the NCAA tournament. Check out Godfather's Pizza today. It's family owned and operated. Go to the website, godfathers.com. That's Godfather's Pizza Pie, piled high.
Tim, I told you I'm going to have my wife pick up some pizza on the way home from Pittsburgh, right?
You did, yes. Awesome.
She's in. She's even going to go like the scenic route to make sure that she can get there.
Oh,
So hopefully I've got a nice big old
you'll
meat
have that
lovers.
Sunday. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just in time for the selection show. Just eating a meat lovers and talking about brackets.
All right. So we got 8 to pick from here, guys. Oh, I'm sorry, Graham. There's 2 teams on here: Mississippi State, Nevada.
I meant to, sorry, just
Yeah.
can you refresh your screen? I think if you refresh it, it probably
Oh, you
is showing up.
Yeah, it did.
got it.
That worked. Yeah.
That worked. Thank you. I know what you're doing is not easy. You're doing a great job.
Awesome.
Though.
This makes it much
But
easier, I think.
Okay, it did refresh. All right, who's going to make the case for Cincinnati?
Not me.
Okay, so we're going to pick 8 here. The top 4 vote getters are going to join the other 4 we have in the holding. The other 4 are, it should be, there could be more than 4. All the rest of those teams will go back in the under consideration pool.
I think
So everybody understands how we're doing this.
we're missing some teams. Am I crazy? I'm looking for West Virginia. I don't see them on here. But we don't have them selected yet.
They were in that other group that tied that didn't get in.
Yeah, West Virginia just missed the cut.
should
For
we
the
just-
Yeah,
Final
hold
Eight.
on.
We just add
hold on.
West Virginia into the 4 that we didn't do.
Well, yeah, because is Wisconsin on there as well?
They're on
Wisconsin.
here.
Okay. Yeah, so let's move West Virginia over in the holding. We'll
So
select
what, from
3.
that last group?
Yeah.
That was my fault. I remembered West Virginia being on the last one. I totally forgot they lost that tiebreaker, so I removed them for that reason.
No biggie.
So
So
it's-
we're voting for 8, but it'll actually be 3.
We'll pick 3 because I think we're unanimous. Everybody would have gone with West Virginia there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So forget everything I said good about you, Graham.
Yeah.
Hey, Graham's a
Well,
good
this is a
guy.
more accurate statement, so that's good.
Graham opened up his house to me last night. It was great. We had some Guinnesses.
I thought you couldn't go.
No, my wife called so he couldn't kidnap me.
Oh, I see.
But no, we hung out. It's good.
Okay.
So are we going to start over, or are we just going to throw West Virginia in and you'll take the
No,
next seven?
everybody said that they would vote for West Virginia. So in purpose
Yeah.
of time, we'll just move them
Take
in.
7 or whatever. Yeah.
We'll pick the top 3 out of here.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Carrie, once I get yours, we
Yep.
should be good to go.
Yep. I'm getting there.
Illinois is now up by
Yeah.
7.
Who's that?
Illinois over Michigan. Houston is only up 6 now.
Alrighty.
Rutgers up 6.
Don't
Lib-
do it.
Liberty down 3.
Uh-oh.
So who would
Florida-
we have? Who would we have if we had the epically bad foursome? So it'd be Minnesota, Georgetown, California,
Yeah.
Louisville.
In Louisville.
and Louisville. There we go. Let's call it the Mock Selection Committee Classic. We can find a place to play it, start selling tickets. Here, let's go. We get a TV contract. We're set. YouTube
Where's the,
TV can do it.
Good
Let's
news
go.
is we got there's some games, even though I only get to see about half of them most of the time, but the 9 o'clock games are got some good ones tonight.
Florida
Arizona's-
Atlantic up
There's a
22.
huge bubble game, Arizona
So-
State, USC.
We get Godfathers to sponsor that mock committee classic.
Unfortunately, the head dude at Godfathers is on the board at Creighton, and so he's well aware how bad Georgetown is. So we have no chance.
I will say this, and you guys probably see it too. Some of the stuff I see on Twitter, the Georgetown fans are actively. There's somebody every day that puts
Yeah.
Brett Pitino.
Yeah. Georgetown's a funny
We'll
case.
take you
though.
we'll take you for your final 3 years. Just come here, right?
They have they're very strange. They've always been very secretive, very, tight in the circle in that program. They don't have a really good relationship with Demantha, which is crazy. The new AD kind of wants to break out of that, but the old guard is kind of holding them back. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'll tell you this though, and Dave, you've probably seen it, watched some, but I mean, Georgetown was very competitive in a lot of those games this year.
Well, I think early on in the Big East season they weren't very much, but
Yeah, I mean,
lately they have been. And I'll say the same thing. You got to give the coach at Minnesota a little bit of credit. I mean, that team could easily have just folded a long time ago, and they've actually been much more competitive in the last month than they were in January's Big Ten games.
He's had
they
a lot of
were-
injuries.
They were just
too.
getting blown out by everybody.
He's had a
Now,
lot
I
of
mean, they're
injuries.
still. I mean, obviously Purdue's a different animal, but haven't won many games, but at least for a while they've kept the game reasonable. Now sometimes it gets away at the end, they lose by 14, 15, but they're not just getting shellacked in the first 15 minutes of the game and then it's just a walk to the finish.
Problem there is they just lost their big recruit out of California. He backed out.
Yeah. But that's one of the tougher jobs in basketball. Minnesota is just not a.
Being a Minnesota native, you need to have somebody come in there and close the borders. How many great Minnesota players leave? I mean, they have tons of really good high school players that don't. When Pitino was there, he didn't even go and watch Salas. Or not Salas. Who's the other guy played for Gonzaga last year?
Jalen.
Yeah. He
So,
didn't even go watch him. He never watched him play once. Are you kidding me?
So are we now? We've got these other added. So then of that bigger group, are we voting? Are we going to talk about some and then vote for? We're going to vote for rank 8 again, or
Okay, so now, I'm sorry, a little behind here. Apologize.
We're working it out.
Yeah, so did we get 3 from this last vote? Are we still calculating? We're still calculating. Okay.
Okay. I
Yeah,
saw
now-
the list over
Now
there.
what we're gonna do, we're gonna rank these 8. The 5 we got and the 3 we're gonna add, and then the top 4 will move into the field. And the other 4 will go back to holding. And then what we'll do then at that point, we will have 42 teams in. So I think that's right at the cut line of like the bubble, and I think we ought to wait. We've got so many, even
Yeah.
tonight, a couple games. And we got to move to the top of the line and start getting in some interesting seedings in the 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth.
Looks like there's some questions in the chat whenever Dave wants to jump in.
Okay. Are they on the chat here? I'm gonna have to get the YouTube channel open here. Hang on.
Hey, I'll send you the link.
I got it up here. I just need to get it open in a different window so I can see the.
About the Caleb Grill and the Zakai Ziegler situations and what the hell we're gonna do with those.
Fun ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if Grill was a
Okay,
huge
so
impact
here's-
guy. I mean, it might be a positive with a negative, you know what I mean? Like, we'll see how they play this out.
Yeah.
So we got these 5 holdovers here. Obviously we didn't really talk much about West Virginia. They've obviously had an upturn. That was a huge win the other night. That was, they would have been lumped in with Oklahoma State, but they, to win one on the road, granted Iowa State's, as we talked about, tanking a little bit, but still they hadn't shown that they could do that all season. And they got a big win. So, I mean, they just remind me of that Vanderbilt team a few years ago that, hardly won any quad 1 games, but they played a bunch of them and they had an unbelievable strength of schedule. And
Well,
I think what
Florida
were they?
comes
19 and 15 or something like that. And, they got in the tournament.
comfortably.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do have to give. I mean, West Virginia's, depending on which version you use, it's definitely a top 10 schedule and possibly a top 5 schedule overall. It's just that they're non-conference. Obviously, the Auburn win looked better when it happened than it did now on their home floor. West Virginia's a tough one for me. There's just something still about, just the overall disparity. I think that like this weekend in their opener in the Big 12 tournament, because there's a whole lot different between being, say, like we said, 19 and 15 or 19 and 14 or 18 and 14 and then being, historically being 2 games over 500 is a difficult spot to be.
Right.
It's not that it's never happened, but it's
Right.
pretty rare to be 2 games above the Mendoza line and end up getting a bid.
Yeah. 17 and 15 would be a tough sell,
Yes.
especially when you look at, that would be 1 more neutral loss. So that would be 5 and 10 neutral road.
Yeah. And if you look at their, the road win at Iowa State obviously is really good, but it was fairly recent and Iowa State they've lost a bunch at home. They've lost three of their last 4 games at home, I think.
Yeah.
Which is
Both Oklahoma schools.
Unbelievable.
which is really odd.
Yeah.
To the 3 of the bottom teams in the league, both Oklahoma schools and now West Virginia.
And so that's the only other thing about like West Virginia's wins. I would look at them different if somewhere along the way they had beaten Texas, Baylor,
Yeah.
Kansas State. I mean, the TCU win is really good at home.
What is that home? Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at the rest, I mean, again, twice over Iowa State, but that team's fallen off, and then their other wins are Texas Tech, Pittsburgh, Auburn.
Yep.
Oklahoma State, all teams that we're talking about potentially being bubble teams probably at this point are in that region.
Yep.
So they don't have one of those two, like if they'd have beat a Baylor at home and a Texas at home and then lost a bunch of these others, it would have a little more punch to it. I think that's my bigger thing when I look at West Virginia. Now their metrics will tell you that they're going to find a way to sneak in, because it would be really rare for a power conference team with I
think unprecedented.
a top 30 net rating not getting in.
Yeah.
But now if they lose their next two and they finish 17 and 15, it may be really close whether they would stay there or not.
Yeah, and they finished with Kansas State at home. So like your point, they've got, out of the teams who are probably still up there towards the top, that's their last chance in the regular season.
Yeah, so that one's like it's about as huge as you're going to get.
Yeah,
and I mean, they win that one, I think they're pretty much in. Don't you think 18 and 14 with that record and those wins?
Yeah, they probably would be.
That would probably seal the deal there.
Assuming that they didn't, like, I don't know who they would play in the first round, assuming they didn't just look really bad or we have a bunch of craziness go on. That's the other caveat, right? You don't want to be that. You don't want to be in that first four heading into the weekend when you start seeing if a couple top seeds start losing.
Yeah, the thing is they're going to be in either the 7-10 game or the 8-9 game, so they have to play early in the Big 12, which will matter. The committee will certainly just be getting underway when that game happens. So they'll either play Texas Tech or Oklahoma. We know that for sure. And if they lose that again, it could be a bad taste there at the end. But I think you're right. I think Kansas State win, as sad as it is to admit, because I don't agree with the criteria, but I think the committee puts them in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm enough old school that.
Yeah, same.
Being, I understand in unbalanced schedules being under 500, but like being that far under 500 at your conference.
Yeah. I mean, they took, just for comparison's sake, last year, Iowa State got in at a 7-11 record in Big 12. But there was also Oklahoma 7-11 that did not. And so, I just think 6-12 in general, like, again, we all know they don't put this on the team sheet. That would be unprecedented. So one of two unprecedented things would happen. They either take a 6-12 team, which they've never done, or they take a team in the top 30 net, or they leave a team in the top 30 net out, which they still haven't done. So they'll be stuck with an unprecedented decision on either side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know there's been 5 and 9. There's been a 6-10 team made it. That's the low point, right? Conference record.
4 under. Yeah. So 7-11 last year.
6-10. Way back in the day that there was 5 and 9. I forget which conference it was, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Back when the conference.
It's 4 unders the benchmark. Yep. That's right.
Michigan just took the lead at Illinois, up 1 with 7.5 minutes to go.
Last time I looked, they were getting bumped.
You guys are just coming for Shelby's job. My gosh.
That's typical for this week, I guess.
It's just an obsession. What can I say?
Yeah.
This Liberty game has been incredible. It's been on the big screen since opening tip.
We got it, guys. So here's the 8 we're considering. Those holders we talked about: Auburn, Mississippi State, Nevada, USC, West Virginia, and then Wisconsin, North Carolina State, and Arizona State. So what we're going to do here, we can have a little more discussion, and then we will do a ranking vote, a 1 through 8 ranking vote. The top 4 will move on into the field. The other 4 will go into holding.
Okay.
think we skipped a step, but I'm okay with it.
No, we didn't. You got to take, after you take the initial 8, that's when you go to 8 and you take the top 4. You don't take 8, 12, then drill it down. They just do that 8 on the first one, where you pick 8, rank 8, then 4 go over, in the other 4 go over and holding. Now we picked 8, we ranked 8, we took the 4 to match with the 4 holding, the other 4 actually go back into the under consideration, actually.
I would just say, I feel like for Illinois, this game tonight at Michigan is big for potentially where they could end up with a seeding standpoint, because I have a feeling they're going to get the complete doors blown off of them Sunday at Purdue. I just don't think Illinois has enough firepower unless Terrence Shannon has one of those UCLA type of games.
Oh, you're talking about Illinois, yeah.
Where he goes like 8 for 9 on threes or something. Because they kind of go how he's been going. And of course, Epps, their starting point guard's out tonight with a concussion.
Yeah, good call.
But they rotate those young guys. Illinois plays a lot of young players, and so, but they had those 2 great wins early, but after that, it's been pretty kind of, other than some decent wins at home, it's been sparse.
I don't know if we talked comparison wise. Can we compare USC and Arizona State?
If you want. If you like 40-point losses on the hilltop.
Rocco.
I get it. I have those days too.
And you weren't there, were you?
No, I didn't go to that game.
Remember I texted you, Rocco, are you at this game?
No, I didn't.
It was the only game this year I couldn't turn away. I was like, what is going to happen next?
Yeah, it was a crazy game for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I guess I'm the Pac-12 guy, so I'll jump in. Yeah, for me, I think we'll start with USC. I think they're probably deserving of the higher spot. Arizona State, of course, before last weekend was probably on the outside looking in for many of us, if not all of us. So looking at USC, they're actually benefiting from Arizona State's magical 3/4 court buzzer beater from Desmond Cambridge, because now they have a road win against a possible team in the field. We'll figure out if Arizona State's in the field later, but that goes along with a really strong road win by 14 points against UCLA. Of course, here in the Pac-12, you don't get many opportunities at tournament teams in this particular season. So that was a really big win for USC to just stay relevant. And then Auburn win, much like some of the other teams we've already discussed, not aging great, but it's still a tournament level win. And again, they're a team you got to look at as you go down through the quadrants, and hopefully my sheet's up to date, but if you get into all of quadrant 2, they're pretty clear at 10-6 in those 16 at bats. And then they took 2 other losses outside of Q2, which makes you raise an eyebrow. We mentioned the Florida Gulf Coast loss on the opening night of the season in the Andy Enfield Classic game. And then they have a Q3 loss in Beaver Nation as well. That was a little bit of a surprise. So the thing I like about USC is outside of the ASU road win, they swept the mountain schools. I think somebody mentioned that at the top of the show here. And then they also have a road win at Washington that sits in Q2 pretty comfortably as well. And they're 7-7 as a road neutral team. Again, it's average, but that stands out when you start to compare them against some of the other options. Just to have a total of 7 and to be batting 500 in those 14 chances. Then you go, of course, maybe, I don't know how you guys look at it, but I look at the metrics at the very end of all of that. And you see they're
You know.
right there. They're right there in the low 30s, which kind of just proves out, okay, they belong in the field. Now, where do they stack rank? So that's what I'd say with USC. If anybody wants to jump in, or I can
Yeah,
jump in.
I just like
Yep.
to say something. You look at those two resumes, they're really not all that different, right?
Yeah.
Arizona State's got that win over Creighton too, when Creighton was shorthanded, but still, that's two top 15 wins. Yet you look at predictive metrics, and my God, they're just a world apart.
Yeah, I think part of that is Arizona State getting blown out in some of those weird results
Sure.
that we talked about. But I think the other difference is, back to that top 2 record. It's a sorting tool. I get it. You can draw the line wherever you want. But USC at 10-6, Arizona State at 9-8. They're just kind of average in those games, where USC's kind of clearly handled their business much better. And they both have the bad loss. And they both have 4 road wins to point at. Like, obviously Arizona State getting the big buzzer beater, which changed perhaps Bobby Hurley's life. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. I can jump into that too in a second, but Colorado, Oregon, not easy places to win. They got both of those. Stanford's played better lately, so Stanford looks like a decent Q2 win as well. That's a really nice cluster. Like, most of these teams don't have up to 4. Both USC and Arizona State have 4. As it pertains to Hurley, I'm just going to say, like, he does not have a contract extension still. And if they get into the field, he probably gets one. If they don't get into the field, he probably parachutes to the East Coast. So that shot changed the dynamics of not only their season, but so much more of what's going to come in the future for Arizona State basketball, Bobby Hurley's life, etc.
And on the flip side of that, Rocco, when I look at that UCLA game, a 12-point game, I'm just like, my God, I don't remember it being, because they just blew them away very late in the last minute and a half. That was a tough battle. Arizona State got way out in front early. And
The Arizona game?
no, UCLA, Arizona State.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The one in Tempe. Yeah.
The one in Tempe. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they kind of looked, I was kind of curious because we saw them in person,
Yep. We did.
in Vegas. And then I was kind of curious to see, like, how they stack up, just physically and man to man against a really good team. And they played great with them. And then obviously Saturday they played great with Arizona.
Yep. That's a good indicator as well. They've got a feisty group. I mean, they for them to go into Tucson, that's such a hostile environment, especially in that rivalry. Even to be that close to have a shot to win it, that was super impressive. Like, if they would have lost by 2, it would have been like, man, that was really impressive, but you really can't put them in. Now it's like, you can't hold your nose just at the buzzer beater. They hung with them for 40 minutes. They led the game for a lot of the game.
In 8 minutes, we can see the rematch.
I think, one of my kind of other takeaway between the two would be this. I think, over the course of the season, I think USC's been a little more consistent on their performance, on how they've done. We've seen the wild swings, but so, I pointed this out the other day when an Arizona State fan was like, well, I don't understand how we wouldn't be in. And it's like, well, you've got some really good, but Arizona State has 6 losses to teams currently that aren't going to make the field, most likely, unless Oregon has a late run in the Pac-12 tournament or something. So whereas USC has 4 losses to teams outside the tournament against the projected field. So that's, and then one of those for Arizona State, I realize we talk about it, but that opening loss back in early November to Texas Southern, is significantly different than Florida Gulf Coast. I mean, neither one is good, but one's 312 and one's 181. That's quite a disparity on that.
Yeah, I guess the crazy thing there is Arizona State actually played at Texas Southern as part of the Pac-12 SWAC challenge.
Yeah,
where also Grambling beat Colorado at home.
Yeah.
That's gotta be the last year that ever happens.
Yeah, it's a 6-year contract, Brad.
That's ridiculous.
But the funny thing is, though, it does show to the point where when we say when the major conference teams want to poo-poo people like Florida Atlantic for playing at Middle Tennessee, and I was like, well, why don't you go down and play at Middle Tennessee? We're not talking about Purdue. Take your middle to lower end of your Big Ten team. They're not going into all those places and winning every night. It's just not going to happen. So,
No
I mean,
way.
that's my takeaway on those two. I have maybe USC a little more, I don't want to say comfortably in the field, but a little more on sure footing at this point. Just based on that, they're also, USC is 16-8 against the top three quadrants, where Arizona State is 13-8. So, we're talking kind of small differences, but then you add in the metrics. And I think some of that's just the consistency. Arizona State can be really good, but they've also had a lot of games where they just haven't been very good. And that hurts them.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation we need to bring back up later in the weekend, because the LA schools are hosting the Arizona schools, and these profiles are going to be dramatically different, especially if there's an upset or two.
If Arizona State wins, they're a lock. I think we can all agree on that.
I would.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could be in decent shape if they win one of their last two, because they're both on the road.
Exactly.
If you get the UCLA, if they get the UCLA win, that's a game changer.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. You go on the road in 1 week and win at Arizona and at UCLA. That's probably going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Those are
Bobby's going to get a new house then, baby.
He's got a nice one now, man. Have you seen those?
Oh,
videos?
he does. Yeah, I've seen it.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Wait, can we shit on
Wisconsin.
NC
We
State
haven't
for a
really
little
talked.
bit?
Let's talk Wisconsin real quick before we vote.
Who has the Big Ten West?
As puzzling as puzzling
Well,
as
I
Iowa.
have the
There's as puzzling as Iowa to me.
I have the I kind of have the Big Ten. Wisconsin to me has been one of those teams where early Wisconsin and recent Wisconsin have not necessarily resembled each other very closely.
Nope.
So for example, if we go back and so this is I realize that per the committee, the whole season counts as it should, and the dates don't matter. But if you go back and look at Wisconsin's biggest wins, December 3rd, December 11th, December 6th, November 25th. Okay, those are their four biggest wins. Then they had some players out for a little while. A couple of people in and out of the lineup. It kind of really struggled. Then they've won. So you give them, they still get, obviously they get credit for those, but I think that's one of the dichotomy is they kind of had that long losing skid in there. And that's sort of put them in a pickle, because they've got that losing record against Quad 2, which, is not an ideal kind of scenario to be in. And they just haven't played many Quad 3 games. So, and if this is another weird thing, it's not that it's never happened, but it is a little bit odd. Wisconsin is actually, we talked about like USC, for example, being 16-8 versus the top three quadrants, where Wisconsin right now is 11-12, I believe. So they're actually a game under 500 against the top, if you add up quad 1, 2, 3. And I think that's probably where they're at. But so their last couple of games are going to be, obviously they get Purdue tonight.
Yeah.
So if they find a way to beat Purdue at the Kohl Center, that's a drastic game changer for Wisconsin too.
If they beat Purdue, it's 7 Quad 1 wins, and they'd be over 500 against Quadrant 1 opponents.
That probably would be enough.
That would probably be enough. Yes.
They're due for a win based on their win-loss
That's right.
record.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
so-
And then they're going to lose to Minnesota to end the season.
They've got
It's kind of the total versus
five
the whole,
overtime,
right?
5 overtime games in Quad 1.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're that thing of the sum of all their collection of wins is plenty good. They just also have that pile of losses. And so it's just where is that comfort zone line, I suppose. I mean, they have enough good wins, but can they just avoid piling up too many more losses?
I don't know, Dave. I would say with 5 overtime games in 12 in Quadrant 1, I would say they're the Minnesota Vikings of,
Well, there's that too.
Houston is up by 17 now with a minute to go. Rutgers up 8. Colgate 1. Illinois up 5 with 3 to go. Iona up 15. Florida up 29. And Liberty up 6 with 30 seconds.
Kennesaw State is in the championship game,
okay.
beating Lipscomb 80-71 just now. And they will be hosting it on Sunday.
Top 2 teams.
Yeah,
I
there we
know.
go.
It was a hell of a game the first game, too. They only played once.
Yeah. I'm glad that they've given the smaller traditional one big leagues the regular season champ a right to go to the NIT.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, but they're, I mean, I understand the tournaments are fun and all, but man, it sometimes dings the NCAA tournament if you have several of the 5 or 6 seeds out of those conferences end up going to the main tournament as opposed to seeing some of the best teams.
Yes.
Yeah, and Dave, that's why you've seen over the years so many leagues shift to these crazier ladder brackets to make it really hard for those 5 or 6 seeds to
The
win
top
the
2
thing.
seeds get basically only have to play a semifinal game. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are that drastic. Yeah.
And I have no problem with that. I'd rather see a really good team from a smaller league than 6 or 7 seed.
Make winning the regular season matter.
Yeah.
Of course, Sydney
Shelby,
has.
you missed a big one, Shelby.
What did it do?
Detroit, Antoine Davis. He only has 7 points at halftime, but they're up on Youngstown State.
Wow.
Ooh,
Are they, has the Horizon, I got so many things going on.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the quarterfinals.
Quarters,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. Of
So
course, the Horizon League's been kind of all over the place this year. So take your pick on,
yeah,
I think, how many teams have I had in my bracket who've been the AQ at one point or another from the
4.
Horizon League?
Houston game is final.
Yes.
Assuming
Okay.
Rutgers holds on, how do you guys, I don't want to speak, how do you guys feel about Rutgers, assuming they avoid this bad loss?
Yeah, they're interesting, Brad. I think you covered them really well in the beginning here. I think with what they told us in the bracket preview, in regards to looking hard at Creighton, mentioning TCU, right? 2 teams with injury stories, let's just say. And I think this committee's really paying attention to that. I think they're going to look at Rutgers. I think from a selection standpoint, I think they'll be fair and Rutgers should get in, from what we know. And then I think when it comes to seeding, that's where Rutgers could really start.
Right, their seed could definitely take a hit. I'm just talking about in terms of inclusion.
Yeah, I think they're in really good shape. I mean, today was the day to make sure they won, right?
Yeah.
I think they're like, for me, probably from a selection standpoint, probably about 9 or 10, if not more, spots above the cut. So they would need to fall lower or have 10 teams below them, past them. It's just not enough runway left for that to be
It's not
realistic.
gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know every time I hear somebody, Rutgers is my last 4 in or whatever, I take another look at them, I'm like, yeah, they're not there for me. So
They won on the road at a 1 seed. You can't just take that away.
yeah, I mean, they're just,
Right.
do they have warts? Oh, hell yeah. But they're just
Done.
They're not as ugly as
of right now, they would have 6 wins against the field too. So there's a lot of other bubble teams that don't come anywhere
Right.
near that.
yeah, exactly.
if winning on the
Yeah,
road
and
against
they're
the
not
1 seed is everything, is Temple in?
exactly. It's not.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Rutgers, for their credit this year, in a year where they haven't been able to win away from home, it's not just Purdue. I mean, they won at Northwestern, they won at Wisconsin. And Penn State is not an easy place to go in to win this year either.
Right.
Not that Penn State's great, but they've been pretty good at home.
Right.
Yeah, I think Rutgers' issue is that they're never really in a preseason conference tournament. They play their games. They play 4 bottom feeders at home, so they don't have the opportunity to pick up neutral site wins. So their road neutral record is always abysmal. That's their fault. They need to do a better job scheduling.
Rocco?
You would be surprised on a bunch of the teams that Rutgers turns down to play. I won't say any of the names publicly, but they have chances to play bigger games. Let's just say that.
I believe it.
Yeah. It's not just Rutgers. There's a lot of Power
Yeah.
5 teams that are.
Well, I mean,
the exact same way.
that's one of the things that just bugs me. And I know it's maybe not as big a deal as it used to be, but if you're a team that's particularly if you should be good coming back the next year, and
Challenge
you
yourself.
choose to play like one of the worst non-conference schedules in the country, and we won't name names right now, but we probably know who I'm talking about. It's very hard to want to give you leeway late in the season because you win a couple of games.
Right.
You know, I'm sorry, you basically took 2 months off,
Right.
played nobody.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it's like what Texas Tech did this year. They played nobody, and they thought the Maui Classic would make up for like 9 bye games against Q4.
Yeah, I mean, so that goes into, we haven't really gotten into that with seeding, but the whole effective record thing, right? You take off the home games against 100, 190 or 200 plus, just take them off the record and see what their actual record is.
Yep.
And when they're 5 games below 500, you got a problem.
Exactly. And that's where I'm at with Wisconsin, not to simplify their resume. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's the big, I have a hard time selecting. They're 5-0 in quad 4, and not to harp on Wisconsin, but they keep going back and forth. They're 11-12 right now. So for me tonight, they need to win to even that out.
Illinois, Michigan tied with 35 seconds.
So it's fascinating.
All right, we've received half of the ballots. We need the other half, and we can move on
Okay.
with the.
I'm sorry. I think I owe you. I'm been chatting here and didn't realize the new one had come in.
I know if you need me to share the spreadsheet again, I thought it was up there for a long time. I mean, for all the talk about Wisconsin, and they've just been okay aside from winning at Marquette in December or whatever. I'd take everything Wisconsin did over anything NC State has done this season. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, NC State gives me 2019 TCU vibes. A team that 99% of the bracket matrix had in, and the committee left out. Not the exact same resume, obviously, but there's some commonalities there for sure. If you break it down,
And they're done. They don't play this weekend. Their next game is in the ACC tournament. So
yeah, that's fascinating too.
Yeah, do the last week stuff. That's weird.
Yeah, they have a 15-team league, so every match day there's somebody has a bye. So it must be their turn.
yeah, they've home wins
Minnesota
over
just cut it to 3.
Miami and Duke, and that's it.
Oh boy.
Liberty won.
Woo. That'll be a good championship.
Yeah, this should be a heck of a game.
See if Darius McGee goes for 43 again, like he did in the first matchup.
Wow.
Okay, I'm not sure. Let me get back out here. The thing didn't want to load in, so let me
Technical difficulties.
refresh this and see if it's an older.
Came in at 846.
Okay, I got it now. Yeah, it doesn't, something wasn't refreshing right, but I've got it in here now. So, okay, take me just a second.
Oh, sorry, Graham. I just saw your note.
Overtime.
Rutgers or Illinois?
Illinois. Rutgers 3 with 9 seconds. If anyone cares about Temple and UCF, it's UCF up 1 with 2 seconds.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm
So
going.
after this, we're gonna leave these teams under consideration. We will throw these 4 that do not make the cut here back into the under consideration. We'll add the other 4 to the field. And then our next ballot will be.
Okay,
we're
you
gonna
should have it, Graham.
We're gonna have to give Graham a little time so we can begin discussing. We'll maybe take a little 5-minute break too. But we will then pick 8 from the teams in the field. And then those 8 we will discuss, we will rank them. The 4 with the highest ranking will move in order, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the seed line. The other 4 will go back into the cross country on the seeding. Now, again, we're going to say this a million times for people watching. Just because they're ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 right now does not mean they're going to stay there. They could, but does not mean they could stay there. They could be moved when we analyze results, and they could also be moved on the final scrub.
Rutgers up 1 with 5 seconds left.
Wow.
Brad has gone to a profile picture because he's off freaking out somewhere.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm going to do if the Penguins lose.
Youngstown
Did we
State,
did we just
or
get another
Pitt
new
hockey?
form to rank here? Yeah.
Dave, I'd sent you a reminder just earlier, just to pop it up to the top of your inbox.
Yeah,
so
I
that's all
got
that.
it. Okay, you should have that one. Yeah, I got it.
Oh
Thanks.
my God, they lost. Holy
Uh-oh.
shit.
Uh-oh.
Lost?
shit.
Uh-oh.
Rutgers just lost.
Oh,
Oh my
no.
God.
Minnesota hit a 3 at the buzzer.
Oh, wow.
I'm not
So,
going to erase them, but I'm going to
so-
think about it.
That was a
Where's
barn
the,
burner, huh?
is that well, that's not the epitome of brutality, but it's close.
Yes, that's close.
So Brad, we were just having a discussion what we thought about Rutgers.
Yeah, we're going to have to reassess.
Yep.
That's
Well,
really
hey.
an epically bad loss there.
Oh, shit.
That's
You know, we
bad
have to
loss
remember-
number 4, so we're going to have to reevaluate Rutgers.
Timing.
Where was that
We
game
watched
on?
it
Was that on
on
Big
TV.
Ten Network?
FS1.
FS1?
Yeah. There's a lot of ways you can land in Dayton, and that's one of them. And they got there a different
Hey,
way
Roger,
last
are
year.
you still working on your ranking?
Who did they finished with Northwestern, right?
They have Northwestern at home. Northwestern's lost 3 in a row. Really, aside from that second half at Penn State, what are they? You know, they're in trouble.
Wow, yeah. Think about that. They wouldn't have had the second half of Penn State. They'd been in real trouble right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what? Wisconsin made 4 shots in the final 14 minutes of that game against Rutgers. They were all threes, but they made 4 shots in the final 13 minutes and then lost by 1.
Iowa made that many in the last 20 seconds.
That's amazing. It's pretty good news for a team like Auburn who needs teams to fall.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rocco. Those other teams are,
Yeah. I don't
and
know.
this is kind of a
probably
huge
has done more.
huge
Rutgers
couple
has
minutes
still
here
done
for
more.
Michigan, really.
Yeah.
Well, not to throw any thunder, but early on, Arizona State 12-2 over UCLA.
Oh,
Wow.
They play them hard every time. They went to triple overtime last year too.
And the good news, if you're an FAU fan, is that the Owls are routing the Owls tonight. So that is they're taking care of their business, and not, that the worst thing for a team like that is to just have a really bad game late in the year and just leave an ugly taste right there at the end. I mean, I know the timing doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't look very good when you get that committee room and the last thing they see is you throwing up a stinker.
Totally.
Hey,
Yeah,
hey, Rock,
Yeah,
hey,
go ahead.
Rocco, I just got a question because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, they have football on, but why doesn't Conference USA? You have to really search and find a Conference USA basketball game. I mean,
Yeah, I think they're all on ESPN Plus.
yeah. I mean, that's what
I watch like all their games, so it's usually on there. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
they used to have CUSA TV until last year or the year before, and that was a nightmare because you had to pay per game. You had to pay like $10 a game to watch it.
Wow.
So like guys like us, we're not going to do that. And the people that were diehard fans, it really sucks for them. I think you could buy a season pass for like $40. It was crazy. So at least for them, ESPN Plus is much better. And I will say this: Florida Atlantic, Rice, UAB, North Texas, UTSA, and who am I forgetting? Charlotte are all going to American next year. All 6 of them. So you heard me say UAB, North Texas, and FAU, the strongest 3 right now,
Sure.
all going up. So yeah, Conference USA is probably stuck on ESPN Plus due to that.
Well, right. I just, you see their football games all the time, and I watch football. I don't watch that much college football, but I run
They
into
get,
those
like-
games all the time, and it's
They get like the Thursday night, don't they?
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
they're battling the MAC, who plays every night of the week.
Yeah. Tuesday night.
Exactly.
They just can't get a network calls them up. Yeah, we'll play on Thursday afternoon. No problem. Let's go.
It's like MAC football. Yeah, it's on like every
Yeah.
night of the week.
All right,
Okay,
where
so
are we at?
what are we, now that we're doing seating, so we're really putting them in order. While we're waiting for these last votes to come in. So where are we now currently? Everyone's sitting with the Alabama, Houston, Kansas debate. Or is there none?
Kansas #1. Done.
Yep.
Shall be one of them #1 4 quadrant 1 wins ago.
Well, Graham paid me a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's $5.
To me, if the discussion is pure resume,
Yeah.
okay, then I don't think that there's really much of a discussion because, Kansas has lapped the field, so to speak, with overall strength of schedule, 15 quadrant wins. I mean, we can go on and on. The question is, if we're trying to replicate what we think the committee will do, they had Alabama 3 spots, 3 spots ahead of Kansas. What, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
And Alabama has done, while they've had some close games and narrowly escaped a couple, other than losing at Tennessee, they really haven't, they haven't given a reason to say they're going to fall. So the question is, has Kansas done enough in that 2-week span to not only jump? I mean, Purdue, yes, has been pretty easy because they've lost a couple times, but to jump Houston, who was 2, and to jump Alabama. I mean, I would be inclined, if you were going to ask me to vote myself, that I would rank Kansas 1, Alabama 2, Houston 3, and Purdue 4. But I can understand why someone would still have Alabama as the top overall.
Yeah,
If we're
that would be
going to-
I don't think they've gotten enough. Look, that reveal's been pretty, even when it's been way earlier than it is now, it's been pretty static, right? Those teams haven't moved around a whole lot. And I would say that the question would be not so much if they leapfrog Alabama, because I think if the committee had them that way, they're going to keep them that way. It would be Kansas over Houston. Do they now think there's enough on the paper to go? We all do, but again, how strong is that #1 net, #1 predictive metric? How much is that going to outweigh what Kansas actually racked up in the resume?
If we're
I think
going
that's the
to
question.
if we're going to compare to the reveal, we need to discuss when we think they set the cutoff, because I think it's pretty clear the Thursday night games didn't matter. Like Purdue's loss to Northwestern, or I believe it was Maryland, clearly was not factored in. Did they count the Wednesday game? Did they count the Tuesday game? Or did they cut it off at like when they met Tuesday morning? Like, why don't we have that information? Because I feel like it would have been easier to predict their 16 if we had known that.
Yeah. All I
Yeah,
can
I
tell
think,
you is when Dave Warlock got with me, he said they were doing Tuesday, Wednesday. I assume by the way he said it, Tuesdays and Wednesdays results counting.
Okay.
Now Thursday, I agree with you, Kerry. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
a
no
little
way they counted
iffy.
Purdue's game.
Because I thought I heard somebody say that they left town Friday morning or something. Or no, I know what it was. The NCAA guys had to go to New York, so they already had the information in their hands.
Yeah.
Right.
But even Indiana's, I think it was a Wednesday loss to Northwestern. It felt
Yep.
like we were all surprised Indiana was as high as they were.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, I heard Norlander tweeted it out that
That's who it was,
they
okay.
were done on Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. So that made
Wednesday
a lot more
afternoon.
sense. Yeah.
Yep.
So like if you, on my site, I did an article Tuesday and then Friday. If I just used my Tuesday article, I almost was exactly with the committee.
Yep. Same.
So
I had
it made
Kansas
so
at
much
4
more
before.
sense after that. Yeah.
well, if I want to go all conspiracy theory, the committee chair did play point guard at Indiana.
I thought it was a little high. They had them as the highest 4, which was still surprising. Like I had just barely got them with the 4s at that point. And then,
Yes,
of course,
yes.
knocked them. Yeah.
I think what did we have them just out, right? Or we have them on the bottom?
I think
We had
them
them just
7,
out.
17.
Yeah, we had that discussion, and I was the holdover that said I thought that they might end up being on that end of the 4 line, but I would not have put them on like the top of the 4 line.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, I think it really comes. I think we seem to have a consensus before we vote that the majority of us feel like at this point Kansas has done enough to at least leapfrog into the second spot. So I guess that question is, if we're talking about, if you're, it depends on how you look at it. Are you looking at just, they are both Alabama and Kansas, I think, are only 2 of maybe, I think there's might be a third team, but I'd have to go back and check, that have their average net win under 100. That's very difficult to do. And you can't do that if you play many quad 4 games.
Of course. Yeah.
And so Kansas has only played 3 and Alabama's only played 2.
Mm-hmm.
Overtime again.
And I will say this, into what we've talked about before, the SEC, while a good league this year, is not at the same level for quad 1 opportunities as the Big 12 is.
Right.
So there is some thinking maybe about, just the fact that so many of Kansas wins are just going to default. Not that of course, some of them are harder to win too. So there's obviously that factor.
I know we haven't done any voting yet atop the bracket, but I think more or less unanimously the top 9, right? That's what I'm sharing here. If we want to talk any specific resume points, just figured I'd throw the data up there for everybody to see.
Yeah. Dave, to your point, like where I'm at with the whole, how do you order the top 3 teams, is really kind of a straightforward point. The evidence that I think the committee gave during that preview weekend was just that, they value Alabama because they've beaten 5 NCAA tournament teams on the road, highlighted by, of course, the win at Houston, which is the best road win Alabama can buy. If you call Houston second best, they have Houston second best primarily because they're dominating every performance metric, but they're also, if you look at it closely, even though we don't have much at bats, as you said, well put, as not even close to Kansas. Their best road win at Virginia would be Kansas's best road win. Kansas' best road wins at Kentucky. So from that little tiny nugget, Houston still has a better road win if you're going off the board. I'm not saying the next. I know Virginia's net has fallen apart, but if you're going off the board, Houston's got a better road win against the board than Kansas, even though Kansas has this huge stack of wins. So I think that's their mentality, which is why I'm guessing nothing's changed. Unless Kansas wins at Texas in the finale, then there's a reason for a possible shakeup.
Think Tim's getting the call from old Joey.
Looks like I don't know if Shelby, but it looks like Illinois and Michigan are going to 2 OTs.
Wow.
Yeah, I said a while ago, double overtime.
Yep.
Watching the Antoine Davis game.
I got a question here for everybody. Instead of Graham putting this whole ballot together the way it is right now, which will take a while, you would just want to send those to him? Your top
we can
8
do
on
that.
teams in the field? Because I got a feeling I pretty much know where everybody's going here.
Yeah,
So
it's going to be from these 9.
we're ranking our top 8. Is that what we're doing?
Just taking eight from the teams in the field. You don't need to rank them. Just
Okay.
send them to them in alphabetical order, preferably. But
Okay.
teams in the field, you just got to pick 8.
You want to just send them Arizona or Kansas State? Because that's pretty much the only debate these days.
If you want to do that, I will accept it because I know exactly what you're saying otherwise.
Okay, let's do it that way. Then that makes it a lot easier.
Well, Texas did lose, but wasn't a bad loss.
Right.
Not to the Texas fans.
TCU is damn good.
They are.
I think they're going to be. TCU is going to be like, was it 2014 when Louisville was a 4 seed and everybody was like, well, they're going to win it all. I feel like we're getting to that point with TCU.
Wow, that's a bold statement. I was going to say like last year's Houston, who got a 5 seed but still punished Arizona, but fell short against Villanova. I think TCU fans would be happy with an Elite 8. They haven't done that.
Yeah. They don't know how to act right now.
They don't know how to act. No, I went to a game there. I went to a game there when they opened that arena, and I was like nobody there. And now all of a sudden they're like a powerhouse. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So while we
Real
got a
quick-
minute here, this is one of the dichotomies too of the as we get into this. But I'm curious. So this is where I know Rocco's gotten into before about UCLA having the neutral court win over Kentucky that's looked better, and that win at Maryland, which Maryland just obviously was very, very good at home this year. And the metrics for UCLA are really good, but depending on what happens with Arizona State and USC, they could fall anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 wins over the field. And again, this isn't about that they're really good or not. They've also been, if you watch them, a little bit shaky in some recent games too, kind of winning by some narrow margins. I don't know if there's a thought on how do you compare like UCLA with like say a Texas or a Baylor, in terms of just maybe the disparity again, a little bit like a Houston with the number of quality wins the UCLA is going to have compared to like Texas or Baylor.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I feel like we're all just kind of waiting to see who is going to assert themselves as the number 2 team in the Big 12. And I think if at any point that happens, that team will finish ahead of UCLA. I mean, my bracket, I had UCLA 5 and then like Baylor, Texas, Kansas State, and just, shuffle them up, do whatever you want. But I think even with that loss to TCU last night, if Texas was to win against Kansas and not immediately bow out from the Big 12 tournament, I think they've got a strong case for a 1 if Purdue doesn't win the Big 10 tournament.
Right.
Hey, I just want to follow up. I don't know I think everybody saw it, but the last 4 teams that got in are USC, Auburn, Nevada, Mississippi State.
Oh,
So we put the other 4 over on the holding.
here, I will unshare my screen so you can share yours.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
There we go.
You just see Auburn.
So
And
we-
for the teams to vote on, we have Alabama, Baylor, Houston, Kansas, Purdue, Texas, UCLA, and Arizona is the final team.
Boo.
Tim, who did you say that we added? We added Mississippi
USC.
State, USC.
Nevada,
Okay.
and who was the other one, Graham? Who was
Mississippi State.
Nevada, USC.
USC, Mississippi State, Auburn, Nevada.
Auburn. Yeah.
Auburn. Clearly, we
Okay.
didn't talk enough about Auburn.
So what I've done here, just to let you know, I would keep these 4 for later on tomorrow sometime maybe. Those 4 are holding: Arizona State, North Carolina State, West Virginia, Wisconsin.
Well,
All right.
gee, that's my first 4.
Wow, look at that. Go buy a lottery ticket, huh?
Well,
All
it's
right.
my first 4 going into tonight. We'll see if that changes.
So now Graham will put together a ballot, a ranking with those 8 on. In the meantime, we've kind of talked that top line, right? Like with, what may or may not happen there. I mean, I guess, how do we feel about, the Kansas Houston thing? I mean, Rocco made a case for, why Houston's where they are. I certainly understand it.
To me, to me, it's a simple question of this. If you're at this point, and this is not any knock on Houston, which is a great team and a team nobody's going to want to play. So it's not a disparaging comment, but
Yep.
to me, if you're putting Houston ahead of Kansas, it's simply because you feel that Houston's a better team,
Well,
which I'm
I-
okay with if you're going to say the metrics are saying they're better. Because from
Right,
a
right, I agree.
resume standpoint, it's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dave. I wish the committee would have just come out and said.
I wish, rather than point to one win over Virginia, I would have said, well, we collectively looked at everything and just the way Houston has played and who they've beaten, including Virginia on the road, that we just feel that right now there's a stronger overall team.
Let me tell you something. He has 3 weeks till Selection Sunday from when he did the reveal, or 4 weeks, whatever it was. He better come up with a lot better answers than he gave that day, because he was
said
just
nothing.
avoiding questions like the plague. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, and,
I
and
thought
that's,
Jay Wright
that's a
did more
big
than
decision.
he
It's a
did.
huge decision for them because it makes a big difference for Kansas of whether they get routed through Kansas City or have to go to Vegas or New York.
Well, sure. It's a huge decision. Huge.
having to write a biggest takeaways from the top 16 reveal piece and like trying to come up with any quotes from Chris Reynolds was worthless. He said nothing.
I mean, here's a question for you. If you're Houston and you became the overall #1 seed hypothetically, would you even want to play in Kansas City? I'm not sure I'd want to play in an arena full of a bunch of pissed off Jayhawks, frankly.
Well,
Yeah, they'll all go to
Uh,
Vegas. Don't worry.
well, I think Kansas would go to New York City over Vegas, right? They're closer to New York.
No,
Yeah, but the question is, would Kansas
think
fans
so.
find it easier to get to Vegas or New York?
no, I don't think that's true. I think Vegas is a lot closer.
Yeah, Kansas
Actually,
is
I
closer to
think mileage
Vegas.
wise, it's actually New York is slightly.
You could drive Kansas City to Vegas in a day.
Right, but it's 12:30 to New York, and I did this before. I know
It's weird because
it's
the
13.
West-
Yeah, it's another
spread
100.
out.
It's 100 extra miles to Vegas. 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Seems
13
impossible.
well,
It's because Lawrence is in the northeast part of Kansas, so it's closer to New York because of the location.
Oh well, I
within the
mean, I'm
state.
just down
What
the
do you
road
know
from it,
about
but I mean,
Kansas?
I can get to Vegas, and I can drive to Vegas in like.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's up to the committee. Unless Kansas is the #1 overall seed, then it doesn't matter. And so if the committee's looking at the map the way we are, they're probably going to put them in New York.
Well, we're gonna ask that of Dave on Sunday. Let me tell you.
Yep. That's the kind of shit I want to know. Excuse my language.
Well, hey
Man.
Rocco, I know why I've had them going. I know why I had them going to Vegas because Alabama's going to New York.
Well, Alabama's not going to New York if they're
Well, they
higher
go to
than
Louisville. I
Kansas.
mean, I'm sorry. They go to Louisville.
Yeah, if they're higher than Kansas, they're going to get Louisville. I was on a show in Birmingham today. I had to break that down for them. But yeah, if Alabama's third in the order, they're going to New York.
Yeah. If it's a debate between Alabama and Kansas at 1 and 2, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Kansas wants
matter.
Midwest, Alabama wants South.
Houston screws it all up for both of them.
Damn,
Yeah, because Houston would go to Kansas City first over to Louisville, right?
Over Kansas, yeah. Yeah, Houston's preferred is Kansas City. Yep. So right now they get it based on the preview.
I mean,
But wouldn't yeah.
I mean,
I'd have
okay,
to
so
ask
here,
How far down do they go for choice though? Did they just do number 1 or do they go 2 and 3 and go, hey,
Number 1 overall is the only one that gets
Only
the
one.
choice.
Yeah.
Nobody else gets it.
'cause I
Yep.
think
Just-
I'm pretty sure if you polled Kansas people, they'd much rather go to Vegas.
And here's a wrinkle. If Houston got number 1 overall, they might pick Vegas because they would have the choice.
Yeah.
So they don't
Probably
have to-
easier to fly
because they
into
know
from
they're going to have
Houston.
to play a Big 12 team probably in Kansas City if they choose it.
That's an interesting point.
Now, if I could just throw this out there, if you're debating between Houston and Kansas too, and 3 of these games are conference games, so there's nothing Houston can do about it. But Houston played 7 games against quad 4 teams at home. So those are those effective record bye games at home. And, so 6 of them were 200 or worse. And 4 of them or 3 of them were 300 or worse teams. For a team that coming back this year was anticipated to potentially be a number 1 seed all off season with Sasser coming back and everything else. So to me, I know they played, I know they went to Virginia. I know they played at Oregon. Beat Oral Roberts really bad at home, had a tough game against Kent State and beat a good St. Mary's team. But if you're talking about Kansas, who played 3 quad 4 games, and Houston, who's played 10, 7 of them by their own choice, that's another edge for me that I would give to Kansas just on the fact of how tough their schedule was.
I agree, but the committee, for whatever reason, had Kansas as 4, and I just don't know if they've passed Houston in the committee's eyes yet. My eyes, yes, but the committees don't know.
Yeah, this was the first week I had held Kansas behind them just for that reason.
Yeah.
But their totality now of 15 quad 1 wins is just
They're good.
is just to me. I mean, they're
And 13 wins.
They're 6 and 4, 6 and 4 against quad 1A.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's just ridiculous.
13 wins against the field compared to Houston's 3.
Good
Yeah,
God.
I mean,
Well, you want another
again,
you want
this-
another stat? Let's just pile on. They have 8 top 25 wins. 8 against the net. There's most of the field doesn't have 8 Q1 wins.
right. And Kansas's worst loss is
Or Q1 and
was
Q2
at-
combined.
is Kansas's worst loss is at Iowa State when they were, on the
Good.
road at Hilton Coliseum. Whereas Houston has
Home
the
to
home loss against Temple. I think before that loss to Temple, it made, you could make an argument that Houston only lost once all year. And listen, Houston is really, really good. This isn't a debate about that. It's just, and I know they don't play in the same conference, but it's just a couple of those disparities are getting harder and harder to overlook.
And also, what does it say about, I know we're talking about Houston and Kansas, but what does it say about a team like Alabama, going to Oklahoma and getting obliterated. And Oklahoma's at the bottom of the Big 12. What does that mean? Should mean something.
Well, it should, but they would say, well, we don't compare conferences. They're all independents. That's what our commissioners or the head of the committee's line would be. I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, their line, and then Brad, they'd come back with, well, they beat Houston.
I mean, they're both clearly going to be number one seeds, but that
Right.
1, 2, or 3 rotation is huge for Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it would be a shame if Kansas didn't get rewarded for 15 Q1. Really rewarded. I'm saying really rewarded. You know what I mean? Normally a team in that, area, if there's any kind of regional, anywhere close, they kind of get rewarded. And, to have to travel their 1,300 miles, that's tough.
If Houston had beaten Kansas, or if they had beaten Alabama, or if they had beaten 1 seeds or even 2 seeds, then maybe you can make an argument for it. But again, their best win is at Virginia, which is a good win. But is that enough to keep them ahead of Kansas? I don't think so.
Well, Illinois is going to win it.
Yep, Illinois 4 up 4 with 2.5 seconds.
And they're probably their most impressive win was Oral Roberts.
Whose best one was Oral Roberts?
Houston. I mean, that their most impressive win. I mean, to beat that Oral Roberts team by almost 40, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
That's a good team.
I mean, it'll be curious. I think obviously we can spend a lot of time here, but it's that game at Memphis to close the season and potentially getting Memphis again in the conference tournament could end up being really big for that final order, because they may not make that determination until early Sunday. I mean, they may have
that game
listed.
What time's that game Sunday?
It'd be like noon on Sunday, usually noon or 1 o'clock.
No, I'm talking this weekend.
Oh, I want to say it's an afternoon game.
Yeah, I think it's a 1 o'clock game.
Okay, so
It's a noon game.
Well, all we would be doing is moving them from one. We could do a contingency where we could move from one if it comes down to that, and it might not. I'm just saying we could move them from one region to another and make sure all those other teams in that region they're playing, they haven't met before. That what probably wouldn't be too tough a contingent to draw up. You know what I'm saying?
Antoine Davis, 8 points away from the record, 8 minutes left, but Detroit is up 3 on Youngstown State.
Nice.
I'm gonna have to pull up that stream pretty soon.
Let it be known, Pete Maravich did that without the 3-point line.
Yeah, and in 83 games.
Only 3 years.
Okay. Well, so we've kind of ranked those. I mean, it's to everybody's decision.
Yeah.
I sent mine in.
We all agree, but we still have to make a decision. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
What do we think?
Okay. Do we have the ballot, Graham?
Yes, we do. We're down to
Okay, I
2
got it.
people left to turn it in.
Oh, okay.
Let me do that here real quick.
Let's see if we have any questions. Got one about TCU. Clearly a different team with Miles. Yeah, different team with Lampkin. Different team with Damian Baugh. I think they didn't have Miles or Baugh for the loss to Northwestern State.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. I'll be right back.
No. Oh. Tim, where's Joe?
Well, he said after 9, so I'll text him here in a minute, see what he's up to.
11.
We just saw him an hour ago, and he was still at the golf. He had to set up the TV stuff at the golf course in a room. So he was still there. So who knows where his dad lives, how far away or whatever. Okay, never mind. We're too late into it now. I was going to ask another question, but forget it.
You can ask it. We can
Yeah.
scrub later. Let's bring it up.
Well,
We got
it's
dead air right now. I'm just riffing.
we'll do it. We'll do it on the next go around.
All right.
It'll still be relevant, I think.
So it's a Baylor question.
Sort of, yeah. You want to share what you just told me, Kelly or Carrie?
I don't know. I don't know if it's public information. Yeah.
I think it's pretty funny because I did think about it, and I said, no way, he's not going to do it.
I really want Detroit to win. That'd be fun.
Sorry, Graham. I just got him to you.
See what happened in the Patriot League?
What's up, Patriot? Colgate?
Yeah, Colgate won, but the American, the 7 seed, and Lafayette, the 6 seed, won. And the Patriot League is one of the last leagues to not do the reseeding. So the 6 seed Lafayette they're going to get a home game in the semifinals.
Wow.
Nice.
Like never happens. Yeah.
So Colgate, already a heavy favorite, just became a
Huge.
minus 2,000 favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. Navy was playing really well, and American took them out tonight. So that was a pretty big surprise.
Well, I think American was the only team that beat Colgate. Both games were really close.
Yeah, they had an injury after that and they fell apart, but man, they played well today. Colgate's coach, Matt Langel's got his name tied to a lot of jobs right now. So keep your eye on that.
So when we get these four will go in order how they are ranked,
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 into the seed line.
Ready.
The other 4 will be carryover, cross country holding. We then need to pick 8 more from that list. So
Mhm.
So we do have our first 4 seeds. The overall number 1 seed is Alabama, followed by Kansas, Houston, Purdue.
thank you, Graham. Would you like a text on these next 8, or do we have a ballot of all the remaining field teams, or how would you like it done? Easiest way
I think
for you.
text would be easiest.
Okay, let's do that. 8 teams from in the field.
In no order.
No ranking.
Not the 4 we just did, but 8 not the 4 holdovers,
8,
but the
8
others.
totally new ones. Yep. Totally new ones in that in teams in the field. Get Arizona out of here. Yeah.
But Kansas State is an option of the 8. since
Absolutely.
They were not,
Absolutely. They were not picked.
we got confused on West Virginia before.
Yeah, I
that
know.
out
I
there.
know.
Okay.
Good call. Good call.
Can you display the?
I will. I thought you could read my mind, but I'll gladly do it for you, Rocco.
I thought you could read my mind.
Well, that is our job. That is our job to read the committee's mind, right? So I should be able to do that.
We've done a great job at it so far.
Isn't there a woman on the committee this year? Good luck with that.
Whoa. Whoa.
No wonder you got canned.
You gotta tell me to mute the thing before you say stuff like that, Shelby.
Oh, I'm so.
I'm just messing with you.
I know.
Okay, so this is the list. Oh,
Yeah,
hold
the
on.
teams in the field, the regular suspects that you probably have on your 3 and 4 line right now.
Got it.
Yep.
Cool.
So should we just discuss Tennessee before we start, or what are we doing then?
Yeah, I mean the jury's out because Ziegler got hurt middle of the game, but they played really well, dominated a good win. So we'll find out at Auburn. Will be the first sample size of what the new Tennessee is without him. Not a lot of time to learn because they'll have that game and then they're going to have a bye all the way till Thursday.
Yeah.
So maybe only 2 pieces of sample size will go into that. And
Well, if they win, I think they could still end up with the 5 seed if they were to lose. I'm not
Oh,
100% positive on that, but yeah.
is that right? I should have double checked that.
I should have. I'm the SEC representative. I'm not sure about tiebreakers.
Well, right now they're 11-6, but yeah, they're tied for third with Kentucky. Mizzou and Vandy are both 10-7.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the tiebreakers are.
Well, didn't Tennessee lose to Vandy? Yeah.
Yes.
And they lost to Mizzou. So yeah, they could lose those tiebreakers. So all right. So we'll see. So maybe they'll get an extra sample size if Tennessee does lose. But for the sake of this conversation, I think you can really only judge off of what we know, and what we know is
Right.
what's there. So
Same with Iowa State and Caleb Grill. Like it's basically a Kenyon Martin situation.
right, almost not, but not as dramatic. I don't think.
I'm not saying Caleb Grill's Kenyon Martin. In terms of
Now,
injury.
Now,
consideration.
if Brandon Miller gets kicked off the team in the next week, then we have a Kenyon Martin situation for real.
Yeah.
What about a team like, say, Marquette?
Marquette is an out.
In Marquette,
I can't say enough how good they are. The whole
On
country's
offense.
sleeping on these guys. I'm telling you.
They destroyed
They
Baylor.
are.
So even though it was at home, it was impressive how much they destroyed Baylor by. But not
They,
a lot.
I don't know how much you guys have seen them, but
how they lost to Wisconsin, right?
yeah,
At home.
yeah, that was early in the year though. They just Kolick is just a tremendous point guard. I mean, he just so savvy. He just finds the open guy. They've got Cam Jones, who tremendous 3-point shooter, and Cam Jones will throw one off the side of the backboard, and then he'll make 8 in a row. I mean, he's that kind of guy. And they're 2 bigs, Prosper and what's the other guy's name?
Iguodaro.
Yeah, they're long, athletic. Prosper's a guy that just flies in from wherever he is for rebounds. And they got a nice bench. They got some guys that come off the bench, hit threes. They got good depth. They certain teams like Xavier, Creighton, I'm trying to think of somebody else, UConn, they like to go 3-quarter court, slow them down so they only have 15 seconds to set up an offense, and they just do a great job of it. It's amazing job Shaka's done.
So then I would say, how do we compare then Marquette versus, like, say, an Arizona or a Kansas State?
Just like you would any other team, Dave.
You picked 8, 9, and 10 on my list. Good job.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference there is, you said Arizona and Kansas State. So Kansas State, just top of the profile, massive road damage at Texas and Baylor, backed up with an Oklahoma State win that's okay, and Nevada on a neutral court. And then you look at Arizona, who won their 5 biggest games away from home, albeit the committee put them right at that 6th spot on the reveal. Winning the Maui Invitational and beating up Indiana and Vegas kind of helped Arizona quite a bit. That quad 1A area, I know Brad and I have talked about on many occasions, it helps Arizona so much. And then we get to Marquette, who has a lot of good. They're a great team, as Tim did a great job explaining. And now they do have the road Creighton win. But outside of that, there's nothing really NCAA level. And that's why I think they're the clear 3rd place between those 3.
They've struggled a little bit on the road. I struggle in a relative term, but I would point out that, we talked about Arizona's nice wins there, 3-4, 14, 17. Marquette has 4 top 20 wins too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this committee really likes the road wins. And again,
Yes.
their win at,
Why do you say that?
well, I mean, you can just kind of reverse engineer the top 16 they showed. And some of the orders we were confused by, like Indiana being at the top of that 4 line, that was like, okay, at the time they had Xavier in Illinois. Xavier was another team they had in the top 16. They had Indiana above Marquette, for example. So I can give you a bunch of other examples. That's a pretty direct one. I think there was some clues in there.
That was
Fair enough.
the only thing I took away from what Chris Reynolds said was he was like, Houston 11-0 away from home. We love them.
Yep. I love that too, to be honest with you. I mean, I think winning on the road is the hardest thing to do in this sport. There was a really good stat somebody tweeted yesterday where if you took all the quad 1 wins in the country, over double the amount of quad 1 wins happen at home versus on the road. And that shows how hard it is to win on the road. And maybe that they should redo the quad system a little bit.
Yeah. I'm all for that. They've
Yeah.
kind of gotten away from that. Like you used to be able to look and go, if a team was much below 500 on the road, man, that was going to be big knock on that team.
Yeah.
And I think the committee really values road wins, and I feel like they really penalized questionable home losses. Like I think that's what hurt Connecticut. I think that's what hurt. Who else was lower than we thought they would be? There were like 3 teams. In the
Connecticut lost at home to St. John's, and
right.
Yep.
Yeah, there were a couple teams who were a little bit lower than I thought, and they all had quad 3 home losses.
Yeah.
Or I think San Diego State maybe had one, and they weren't even mentioned as a contender for a 5 seed, and I was shocked by that.
I would say this about Marquette. Look who they lost to: Purdue, UConn, Xavier, Providence, Mississippi State, and Wisconsin, and 2 of those were overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not a bad list.
they have not lost any chumps.
Score updates.
Ooh.
North Texas is up 9, if you care. Youngstown and Detroit. Youngstown up by 1.
Yep.
3 minutes to go. Howard is more than doubling up Norfolk at half. 25-52. Purdue up 4. UCLA up 4. Memphis up 9 at SMU.
That is not the MEAC tournament, though, right? That's just a regular season games. I hate this time of year. I love it, but I hate it.
Yeah, this week is bad because some leagues are starting conference tournaments, the
It's so
smaller,
bad.
some aren't. I always got to double check every morning. It's like, okay, yeah, that one's right. That's a conference tournament.
I've got one update too. Joe Lenardi update.
Is he here? Hi, Joe.
No, he's not here yet. He goes, this is 10 minutes ago. He goes, this overtime killed me. He goes, I've literally been standing in front of this camera for an hour and they still haven't come to me.
The Michigan Illinois game.
Yeah.
Well, okay, they've got his. They've updated his. Or they have it up on the screen right now.
So he's still planning to join us. He's just running behind.
And so the 8 teams that we're adding are Gonzaga, Indiana, Kansas State, Marquette, Tennessee, UConn, Xavier, and Virginia.
So we're gonna rank those 8, and then they will join the 2 seeds, and then we'll actually vote on the 2 seeds. Correct?
So we're going to rank these 8. Okay. And then, we'll rank them. The top 4 will join the holdings, and then we will vote on those. Could you rattle those off again for me, Graham, please?
They're in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I got it.
Do you want us to just send those to you and
No, he's going to do a ballot. He'll do a ballot on those. He'll do a
for
ballot
ranking.
on those 8. It won't take him long to do a ballot on those 8. It's actually a pretty slick system.
okay.
Like,
So we've got the 8th there. Discussion?
Virginia doesn't belong.
Well, yeah, this is the interesting part, right? Because based on where the committee had Virginia before, how much are their recent losses in slide? How far is that going to? What kind of an impact is that going to have?
Where was Virginia?
On them? Because
Nine,
that loss
9 or
included
10.
particularly the ones at BC. So where do we, because that's one I would agree with Kerry. You've got a couple of the teams that weren't on that list that are probably going to be in the next batch, and one or two of those could be in discussion as potentially, head to head being slightly better than Virginia. All right. Time to rank.
Time to rank.
You sent out the ranking already?
He is fast.
He is
Damn.
so slick.
That's what she said.
It's that Kansas education.
Fast break.
I got a question here before we rank. Where, Gonzaga was down in the middle of the pack of the 4s. Reveal, where do we think they are now? Rocco Miller, you goes first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the win against St. Mary's at the end helps some to win against the field. I think, they've just been sitting there waiting for teams to fall for the most part, just because they're in a league where they're not playing tournament teams until that St. Mary's game. So they're pretty much in the same spot, but just if you look at the teams who have fell and the mix of their results, in Indiana, for example, is a team that was above them. And they had another great win against Purdue, but then got pounded by Iowa. And also if we're going off the information that the preview did not incorporate the Northwestern loss, they also had a win over Illinois. So they have a bunch of mixed results. Whereas Gonzaga's just been kind of in the same spot and only just building on what they had before. And then you look at Marquette, who I think might be tough for Gonzaga to pass now because Marquette's been nothing but great since the preview. And then you look at, I guess those were the main two above them on the 4 line. On the 3 line, I would say we probably all agree Iowa State's fallen so far that Gonzaga's passed them.
Yes.
And then Kansas State's played well enough to where they're not in that conversation either. So I think for me, Gonzaga just kind of slides up a spot or two because of that. And then they're right there, maybe in that 12-13 range. But yeah, they've done what they need to do since the preview. That's for sure. They lost the tiebreaker and they'll play as the number 2 seed against either Santa Clara or probably San Francisco, who are in a ladder bracket before that game. And St. Mary's will be playing either LMU or BYU most likely in their semifinal. And so we'll see if they'll get a third round with St. Mary's. If they beat St. Mary's 3 times, that should get them a pretty clear 3 seed, I think. So I think that's what's at stake for them.
Yeah.
Don't overlook that big win last night over Chicago State.
Yeah, Chicago State's like the best Chicago State they've ever been. They're like in the 200s.
I hope you didn't help Gonzaga come up with that scheduling little snippet.
Oh, believe me, everybody wanted to schedule Chicago State. That was not they were not alone, because with them going independent, there was a bunch of teams where in weeks where they only had one conference game looking to throw Chicago State or Hartford in there for like a midweek. Gonzaga had the most money, so they got them. That's literally what it comes down to.
Oh yeah.
So good situation for Chicago State, man. They got a ton of checks.
Yeah.
I would just say this. I just turned in my ballot, but the thing with the thing with Indiana is, how is the committee going to balance, as Rocco pointed out, just the inconsistencies that they've had, since that reveal. You've got 2 wins against Purdue, which obviously resonates really, really well for them. And then you've got, you know, their next best win, that road win at Xavier, looks really good. And then it gets into a lot of quad 2 stuff. Indiana's only 5-8 against quad 1. It's just they're 3 of them are really, really good.
I'm right there with you, Dave.
I mean, I think they're a very solid team, but I kind of mess with where the committee is going to leave them at the top of that 4 line. I think they're still probably on that 4 line because of where the committee had them before. But I think, Gonzaga's beating St. Mary's, and then, Connecticut's playing better again. And Connecticut's non-conference and their metrics are really, really good. So one thing that holds me back a little bit on Xavier is just that they've had a couple in there that just a couple of small head scratchers. I mean, that you just make you wonder, well, why are you losing those games? But I mean, the home one to Villanova, the way Villanova's been playing now, isn't shock. But losing it to Paul and losing at Butler, those are probably a couple of games, both over 100, that are losses that if it's going to keep Xavier off of getting to that, being in that contention for the upper 4 or the 3, those are the 2 that would do it.
Yeah, and I would, and Dave, you know this very well. I would point out they're without Zach Fremantle, and you may say Boom is their most valuable player. Fremantle's their most valuable player. They are a different ball club when he's on the floor. He's a for most teams, he's a real tough matchup because they've got 2 guys in that can play down low, but he's the more mobile of the 2, and I think actually is a better 3-point shooter as well. And he's developed a nice low game. I know every coach in the league says that when they play him. They're like, God, Fremantle's a beast.
And remind me, Tim, did Fremantle miss? He didn't miss the DePaul game. Did he miss the Butler game?
So they played at Creighton on the 28th of January. I thought he played pretty good, but apparently during that game, he hurt the foot and then went to practice and hurt it again. And then they just shut him down. Okay. So he missed the Villanova game. He missed the Butler game. And he missed the Marquette game.
Is he going to be back for the tournament?
I was kind of shocked last night in a big game. I mean, that game was for second place last night, Providence and Xavier, and I was surprised he didn't play, but they held him out. The last report I heard was he is going to play next weekend.
Okay.
Tim and Carrie, once I get your ballots, then we can move on.
Yeah, one little nugget for Xavier that exists thanks to last night. One of my favorite stats. They are now the only team to win in the old dunk since they renamed it. What I'm saying is they're the only team to win at Providence all year, and that gives them a nice little resume bullet point.
Yeah, I sent you mine.
We got a couple of, I think, Shelby updated, but UCLA's up 4.5 and Purdue's up 4.5. So. Couple of bubble teams in action right there, potentially.
Looks like Youngstown State's going to win.
Yeah. I'm still watching it. Davis is 3 away from the record. Maybe he'll hit I think he would tie him with a 3.
He shot an air ball 3 while ago.
Yeah. Here he goes. Missed it. Nope. Didn't get it.
Nope.
You have mine now, Graham?
Yep. And the four
Okay.
teams that are moving forward are Gonzaga, Kansas State, Marquette, and Tennessee.
By the way, Rocco's just stepped away for a little bit. He's got some people over at his house for his birthday, so but he's still gonna vote, so forth. So, all right. Hold on 1 minute here.
So that they join
They joined the other
Arizona, Baylor,
UCLA.
Texas, and UCLA.
Have that up in a second here.
And we can
Yeah, I'll get that.
we
I'll
can,
get
prob-
them
we
on
can
my
probably do
spreadsheet.
we've been talking about all these teams. We can probably do another ballot here pretty quick.
Yeah, he's gonna put one together here shortly. We'll
Especially
do it.
because we'll do a scrub through of this later, so we don't have to spend too much time. Interesting stat. I just happened to look the Illinois-Michigan game. Illinois basically won at the free throw line. Outscored Michigan 26-17 on free throws and won by 4 in double overtime.
And I'll sharing the spreadsheet. And I'm going to go put some of these Guinnesses in the bathroom real quick, and then I'll be back with you guys.
Could you rank it while you're in there? Just kidding.
Yeah, got it.
Let you on there. And then I go in to look at the actual, team sheets. But it kind of helps you sort sometimes.
Right before we started doing all this tonight, about 5:30 my time, we had a tornado go through my little town here. Hit my
Really?
my barbecue guy's place got damaged. He's working on building, making it like a restaurant at home, all outdoor seating, and it got trees around it. It's about a half mile from me.
Ooh, that's scary.
We had some nasty weather.
We talk about, the one thing you can say when you look at when you're comparing some of these teams that might be on the 2 line, if you look at since that Vegas event when UCLA lost a close game to both Baylor and then Illinois, they're 23-2 since then. With a close loss at Arizona and then, got beat at their rival at USC, but they're 9-2 on the road. And I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the UCLA is just not that offensive powerhouse team like all the time like Alabama. They don't play that way.
Right. There's a lot of games I watch UCLA and I'm like, man, how did they accumulate so many wins? Because it looks like they could lose to anybody at any given time.
And that's the thing. So they play a lot of, it's a little bit like in some years past, a lot of some of those really good Virginia teams, they blew out some, but they were just in a lot of 6, 7, 8 point games all the time.
Well, they're up by 8 on Arizona State as we speak.
Yeah.
So Bobby better not buy that new house just yet.
Right? Yeah.
Graham, what were you telling me last night? There's only ever been one team that's overall seed was worse than its lowest metric or something like that. And I'm looking at Gonzaga, they're 11 or better in every single metric.
Houston last year, but they were
Yeah.
terrible against quadrant 1, so it made sense for them to drop. And they didn't even drop much, right? They just dropped to 17th overall. It's not like they were far out of it.
Right.
And one of the reasons I was surprised that they had Gonzaga as low as they did is just, again, because of, I know Gonzaga has some low end teams on their non-conference, but only 4. They always play, their non-conference, Alabama, Purdue, at Texas, Baylor, Xavier, Kentucky, Michigan State. That's not too many teams have 6 quadrant 1 non-conference games. Point loss maybe dinged them a little more than it perhaps should have.
Hate that the predictive metrics love Tennessee so much. And the net, which is a predictive metric, if we're being honest.
Yeah, well, to me, the thing with Tennessee is it's not that they don't have the wins. It's just they have some like that, they're basically 500 against quad 2. But it's just like they said, if they have lost, somehow they've lost, well, I suppose Vanderbilt could be a threat at the SEC tournament, but hanging around the fringe of the bubble somewhere on the outside. But the loss to Florida, Colorado, Vandy, 3 teams that probably aren't going to make the field is a little high for a team to be that's vying for the 2 line, in my opinion, but they have everything else.
I feel like that game, I think it was at Mississippi State, where they scored like 87 points. I feel like that just broke the metrics for them. It just makes no sense. Because other than that game, they've been horrible on offense. I don't understand how their KenPom rating is as high as it is. I know their defense is incredible, but they're terrible on offense if you watch them outside of that one game.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we voting on these?
Yeah.
Okay.
UCLA is up 11.
That changed in a hurry.
Time to switch over to the Wisconsin Purdue game and see if
A 1 point game.
that'll be a Wisconsin will walk the ball up the floor.
Memphis is up.
UCLA and Purdue are going to be really close. If
Yeah.
Purdue loses and UCLA holds on,
Those
that's going to get interesting.
those teams have really just said, "Hey, freshman guards beat us," and they haven't been able to do it. And
against
they haven't
Purdue.
handled that double. They haven't handled a double team very well, really.
I think in their 4 losses in February, Edie's still averaging like 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks, and it hasn't mattered.
Hey, just want to shout out to our sponsor, Godfather's Pizza. Over 1,200 locations across the U.S. serving the best pizza you'll ever taste. Go to godfathers.com and you'll find a restaurant near you. To find the locations, as I said, godfathers.com. And while you're there, check out the great menu. The Godfather Classic Combo, taco pizza, pepperoni, sausage, and the desserts, cinnamon monkey bread, and streusel. All great selections. You can get some wings while you're there as well. So check it out today, Godfather's Pizza. It's family owned, operated. Go to the website, godfathers.com. It's pizza pie, piled high. We're for people just joining in, we're right now getting the actual seeds for the 2 line. So we've already got the seeds up for the top line. We'll show you those here in a second. And right over here on the left, we have Alabama, Kansas, Houston, Purdue. Now, again, those aren't necessarily where they're locked into. We're going to be throughout the weekend moving them up and down, depending on some results. And also on Sunday, we'll do a final scrub of the entire field where, results and other resume changes could occur. And, just a good time to point out to some people maybe are really interested in this, but haven't really seen it before. A resume can change if you don't play. It can change to the good if you lose. It can change to the bad if you win. It sometimes happens. So if you look at somebody, I'll take an example here. A recent example was Kentucky. If you hadn't looked at their resume for a couple of weeks, you probably were shocked when you looked at it and saw the quality that was on that resume. So that's something that we'll keep tabs. We're all pretty experienced bracketologists and have done this a long time and know what changes can be made. By the way, I should point out as well, and we'll do this again this year, after we put out this bracket on Sunday, obviously there can be some changes to the bracket that we made, and we go in and we do it. We'll pick a day. We'll either do Saturday or Sunday, but we go in and make some changes compared on things that have happened. We just go up and down the seed line and throw a new bracket, so we have it updated for bracket project. Our good friend Joe Lenardi is currently doing a cut-in on the UCLA Arizona State game, and he looks like he's really tired.
Tired or drunk?
Well, could be a little of both. I don't think he's probably drunk since he had to go on ESPN, but and Joe has UCLA, Baylor, Texas, Kansas State.
He's right.
And he has Alabama, Kansas, Houston, Purdue. So he had it the exact way we did.
And last year we did very little aside from like updating, obviously the auto bids, right? We hardly scrubbed anything.
We
for
did
conference tournaments results, and I think
we had a
that
conversation
boded well for us.
A&M and Notre Dame is who we
Right.
remember.
Yeah.
A&M, Notre Dame, and I think maybe Wake, maybe. Yeah. I think those are three kind of conversations I remember on the second go round. Yeah, we just updated the the automatics, and that was about it. Yeah.
Well, the last, well, at least for last year, and now really the last couple of years, the outside of maybe a couple of those early conference tournament games, and or if they have a somebody obviously playing for a AQ that might not otherwise get in, some of those Friday, Saturday games seem to not make a whole lot of difference.
Nope.
Yeah, and part
But you know, you
is,
played what, 32, 33 games by then. So one more result against a good team, one way or the other on a neutral floor is probably not going to, unless you got a teams that are right close to either being a 2 or a 3 or a 1 or a 2, you know, and you're looking at a tiebreaker option. But
Texas A&M last year broke me. I'm not changing anything in conference tournament week unless it's an auto bid. Like, I cannot believe A&M didn't get in with that run. The only thing I'm
Yeah,
going to
I
do
think
is Sunday
makes a
morning,
good
I'm going to wake up and I'm going to flip all my 8s and 9s because I always screw those up.
just an automatic flip just for the, and then this
You
will
make
be the year they go, nope, Gary, I'm sorry, we're you had him right.
We
Yeah.
like Rutgers more than we thought.
I think you might be onto something, Dave, there. I wouldn't doubt that would happen, that this committee would just go, yeah, we are going to take committees. We got so much heat last year. We're going to take the tournament serious. But the other thing is this, typically by Thursday, they've got all the teams in the field.
Right.
Now they might do a scrub and they might add somebody, but
So in other
You know,
words, you have, that's the whole point. Somebody by the time they get to those late Friday afternoon, Saturday games, if you're not in, they maybe only have 1 or so spots left, and some of those get taken away by something else. So
Right.
it's almost like if you're far enough out to where you're not in, and maybe you're not one of that first team out and somebody else loses, if there's not a real close call, they're not saying, hey, in 2 days, you don't get to make up, 3 months worth of work.
and the general public really has it, and I know we all fight it, and that's recency bias. I mean,
Yeah.
we have 2 teams on the bubble battling, and one loses, we immediately jump the other one ahead sometimes. Whoa, slow down. We need to take a full look at the resume again and make sure that team A belongs over team B.
Well, because sometimes 2 teams can be next to each other, but the disparity between the resume is still enough that the one can still absorb a loss, particularly to a good team, and it doesn't really change the order.
All right, so we got them. UCLA, Baylor, Texas, and what I would say was a very mild surprise, Kansas State.
For it. And I didn't fudge the numbers. I had Kansas State at 8. I didn't put them at 5 to ruin anything.
We talked a lot here, so I'll let it go for tonight, but I do want to come back to that at some point. Just that strength of schedule, how much that's really going to hurt them. Okay, so we got Gonzaga,
Marquette, Arizona, and Tennessee. This is where I get confused. So we have 4 holdovers from the 2 seed vote, and we have 4 holdovers from the previous one. So now what, 8 to join the other 4?
Yeah, so now you pick 8 again from that group. 8 gets picked from the teams in the field area. Let me pull it
But
up.
we
again.
have, who do we have Indiana. Who are the other 3?
Yeah, the holdovers.
Yeah.
Well, no, Indiana went back into the field. So we have Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Tennessee are holdovers. They went back into the field. Now we pick 8 again.
So the Indiana, Xavier, Connecticut, they're now in this one again.
This
We're saying,
field.
okay.
Now let me share here. Yes, here, right here on these teams right here. Those bottom 4 are the ones we had last time.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't get those back in alphabetical order, but
And is this
did Graham, I don't know if Graham, did you get a chance to get a ballot of those 20 yet or not?
Yeah, I'm about to send it in about 15 seconds.
Oh,
Okay, great.
perfect. Beautiful. Yeah, now we're getting down to a manageable level here.
You are easily the best alternate we've ever had.
Well, it's a 45-43 Wisconsin. 12 minutes to go.
Are we on, is that on Big Ten? No, they got women's tournament on Big Ten, right?
That's on FS1.
FS1 again?
Yeah. UCLA's up 14 on Arizona State. So
So
Yep.
I was looking for a couple more people to join us this week, and one of the guys I reached out to is Nick Baugh, who's does games on Fox and Big Ten Network and lives here in Omaha. I've known him forever, and I just reached out because it was something I know this is something he'd really get into. The fact that we'd probably be talking about some teams that he's covering. He said, "I can't. Here's my schedule." Insane. He's doing 2 games this weekend. The regular Big 8 or Big 12, Big East, Big 10. Then he goes out to Boise, does the Big Sky tournament. He goes, I've never even hardly watched any of those teams, much less had to commentate games on them. Then he's got to go back and do some, which conference is it, Northeast or something? He goes, haven't seen any of those teams. Got to watch tons of those teams. This is all within like 5 days of each other. It's like, wow. It looks glamorous. Those guys put in a lot of work.
Yeah. I just looked at the Sunday schedule, and this sucks for us. But the Wisconsin-Minnesota game and the Northwestern Rutgers game are both 7:30 Eastern. So we're going to have our selection show, and then Rutgers is going to lose, and Wisconsin is going to lose. I'm just kidding, Brad. Rutgers is going to win by 30.
We'll have our contingency, our contingency through the contingency.
Yeah.
Here, the good news for Rutgers is that as of tonight, Wisconsin was 240 in the net, which makes them the very bottom end of a quad 3 loss.
Minnesota or Wisconsin? I
I
know
mean,
Wisconsin's
Minnesota.
low.
I'm sorry, I said Wisconsin. Minnesota.
Yeah, it's a quad 3. It's a quad.
Yeah,
3.
well, and it'll stay there because Minnesota,
yeah.
you think, would at least bump up a couple of notches.
Definitely.
But this is what's weird about Rutgers' resume, right? So they're 6-6 quad 1, 3-2 quad 2, so 9-8 against top 2 quadrants, and then 2-4 against quad 3. The things you can't explain.
Yeah. I still think if they beat Northwestern, they should get in.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's with 4 bad losses, they're gonna have an uneasy feeling all the way to the selection Sunday.
Hey,
there's no guarantee.
I got a couple things here. There
Sure.
should be Creighton and UConn should be on here too.
Yeah, we're missing Connecticut for sure.
Are they a holdover though?
Nope. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Wait. UConn might be.
No, it's
No,
not.
they are not. No, they're not.
Yeah, so if you refresh, UConn and Creighton were added at the end. I forgot to include them in the alphabetical order, which is kind of hard doing that mentally. So I added them
No
at the end.
worries. No worries.
We're good now.
Stuff
We got
happens,
'em.
man.
It's bringing me back to elementary school, going through so many places in alphabetical order.
Well, and UConn, is it Connecticut or UConn? You just keep going back and forth.
I
was
go
having
with
the same
UConn.
problem with UVA.
UConn's.
Uh-oh. Shelby getting a phone call.
That or a tornado warning.
A tornado.
There we go. Okay.
Tim, you mentioned Nick Baugh's podcast. I think Nick Baugh, I think he has a really good podcast. If anybody's ever listened to it, he's a great announcer, great play-by-play guy, but very good pod too.
All right, hold on one second here.
I did a radio spot a couple days ago. It was John Crispin, I forget who else, and the other guy. When he was asking me questions, it was fine. Man, John, I had no idea where he was going with questions, and then I saw Lunardi did like a jump in whatever when Crispin was on the desk the one night, and seemed the same way. He was always like taken aback, didn't know where John was going.
Well,
pretty
we
funny.
can ask Mr. Sedlinard.
And that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know anything about anything.
That's what everybody
There's
on
the-
Twitter says.
The man, the
What's
myth,
up,
the
Joe?
legend.
How are we doing, fellas?
Man,
Great.
you had a long stint there in front of the camera.
Oh man, this is the glamorous life we lead. How's
So how's
everybody?
things?
We're doing great. How are you, Joe?
I'm great. I won't keep you or interrupt you for long. I'm in the middle of attempting maybe the dumbest thing I've ever tried to do along with bracketology, and that's playing a golf tournament this same weekend. And my wife's dad is turning 85 this weekend in Florida, and this was kind of a command performance. And I wasn't really asked. You know, we all have those 1-to-1 votes that we lose. And if yours are anything like mine, she's undefeated. And number 1 overall seed. So I got nothing. And I mean, obviously I love golf too. And they gave me a conference room here to try and keep up with some TV hits. And then Michigan had the nerve to go double overtime. And I was supposed to be on like middle first half of the UCLA game, but that ended up starting on ESPN News, and they played like the whole first half on ESPN News, and they didn't want me on that network. They wanted me on. So not that you all care. So it's great
We
to
do
see
care.
everyone, and you're all doing great work. And I try to keep up, and I'm now at the stage where that will fail.
Well, you'll be happy to know that we've seeded the first 2 lines. They're exactly like you just posted them on ESPN. So you're pretty
Excellent.
smart, Joe.
Well, I mean, at some point, doesn't the sheer weight of Kansas have to move them
Yes.
to the very top?
I hope.
Right? Like, I'm not just making that up, right? Because I counted quality wins on the plane today down here, and they have 4 more than the Celtics.
Yeah, Joe, we've discussed it. 13 wins over the
Oh, good.
field, 19 quad 1
Right.
and 2 wins, 15 quad 1 wins. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, right. And look, I'm a long-standing non-power conference guy. But okay. So Houston's absolutely a 1 seed to me, even if they lose a game. But that doesn't mean they have to be first. Right? So that's my 2 cents, and I'm sure you've all solved all the rest of the problems. And
We have not. Actually,
my dilemma at the moment is, can I stay awake until the end of the Arizona USC game, which would normally not be a problem. But there was 9 holes today, and we won our first match there, TK.
nice job, buddy.
Yeah, 6-3. Joey had
Whoa.
5 pars. Joey had 5 pars. I won't mention
Well,
the 4 lost balls on the other hole. But
You must be getting some pretty nice pops though with your father-in-law at 85.
yeah, but I'm in our flight. I'm only giving. I have the best handicap in the flight.
Well, sure, that happens.
I think some of them actually can't see or hear, so that might have something to do with it. But yeah, we may just simply not change Arizona or USC in the morning based on whatever it is that they do, and I'll catch up on Saturday.
That's
Well-
every Thursday night for me.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. And, usually, whoa, look at that. Super duper. Yeah, that's a lot like the thing that my guy built. So well done. Well done.
Thanks, Joe.
You see, yeah, I have Baylor a sliver ahead of Texas now. And doesn't it seem like K-State and Iowa State are both going to get better seeds than they deserve?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Based on what the committee revealed, you can only drop Iowa State so much.
Yeah, that's not keeping me from doing it, though.
Right,
Brad.
right.
And I'm torn all the time, and for the long timers, you tell me what you think. Like every year something gets stuck in my head from the reveal, and most years it doesn't carry over.
That's
Unfortunately,
interesting.
we don't know what that is.
Right.
So, well, this is a special moment when Rocco turns his camera on.
Joe, I'm sorry I missed your arrival, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm doing
good,
great.
Good to see you. Are you
No
going to be in
Vegas for me this year.
Oh, come on. I'm going to cancel my trip now.
Well,
no, it's good to see you there.
My flightless Hawks are playing almost certainly on the first day at the A-10s, and I should, probably be there to read their obituary. So,
Hey, the A-10's wide open. Anything can happen out there.
yeah, right. And Scarlett Johansson might return my call.
Joe, I spent 2 days in Vegas with Rocco. Everybody in the whole city knows him.
I know.
It's
noticed
a
that.
problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
Well, we were there last year. That halftime guy who balances washers and dryers on his nose.
Yeah, that was
You know,
crazy.
Tyler's tipping point or whatever he's called.
Yep.
He balanced Rocco like a seal.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think Joe, on your question about the reveal versus the final,
yeah,
this year it seems like the shortest amount of time because it was the 3rd.
it is. They moved it back a week.
Yeah, and Selection Sunday is even earlier. It's on the 12th, so it's less than a month of games in between.
Yeah, I mean it's 3 weeks in a day instead of 4 weeks in a day.
Right.
I just
you get
I
like
look at the
Iowa
I don't
State.
know who the. I'm sorry.
I was going to just say, and like even with that short amount of time, Iowa State's winless since the reveal. Yeah,
Well, that's what they get for being overseeded.
exactly, exactly.
And yeah, I don't know who the alphas are in the room. And I pay less attention to that as they become more formulaic, which I believe they have. I think the net has created that. I don't know what you guys think.
Yes.
But
There's more of that than ever, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and they're mostly bureaucrats now.
Mhm.
Like this isn't their passion. Right? Like if we did it, there's no doubt in my mind it would be equally good, if not better. And if there was a couple of cases of the good stuff, we could throw in the NIT no extra charge.
Well, I think we know, according to Mick Cronin, we know who the alpha in the room is.
Oh, honest to God, these guys should just coach their teams.
Seriously.
Like seriously. And I get it. You guys will be very happy to know, because I know you've been awake 3 years worried about it. But I finally had an encounter with Archie Miller after the trash can incident from a few years ago, because, unbeknownst to him, when he came into the Atlantic 10 and ended up at St. Joe's a couple of weeks ago, even though I'm 4 years out, I still have the master key to the building. So I went into the back of the visitors' locker room while the team was out on the court to make sure, we had a quiet moment together. And he was insisting that his comments about me and about bracketologists in general, that, were Sesame Street characters, were actually directed
Yeah.
at Dan Dawkins. Actually. So I, of course, that day being, grudge holding West Philly Italian, had watched the clip from 3 years ago and made completely sure he was talking about me and about us. And I said, Arch, how about we resolve it this way? I called you a jackass in my book. I said, but I was really talking about somebody else. So why don't we just kiss and make up? He's a strange duck interpersonally. He's just an odd duck. And he's better now, actually. Like for a while, I thought he was on the spectrum. Like, anyhow, he can coach.
Hey, Joe, being in Philly, what do you think? Let's say they keep making this run, and the Justin Moore
stop
injury. What do you
it.
think about Nova?
Well, the good thing about being in Florida is I won't see any Villanova people for 3 days. I hope. I mean, like, here's my thing about absences. And like, if you're going to factor in and say, well, maybe they win another couple, 3 games with him, right? Well, what about the bad losses where they would have lost anyway? Right? Like, they just haven't had a very good season. And, we can move them, to the fringe of contention. You want to make them 82 or 79 or what? Okay, fine. But like, eventually, to need an at-large bid, they have to lose a game. And, I don't think they can climb far enough before they lose. That's me. And, I was born to hate them. So it's been a pretty shitty 5 years. But, I think everybody's been fair to them. But, a little regression to the mean is fine. Can they make it to the final, lose, and get in? Probably, but a lot of other coin flips would have to go their way. Right? Like, and the problem with passing 8 or 10 teams is that they can't all lose all of their games,
Right.
especially when they're playing each other. So, that's yeah.
They're not exactly going to be playing chumps in Xavier and Providence either.
No, I understand that. And
no,
look,
I mean, I'm saying other people don't. Other people don't understand that.
Right.
So
now,
I'm saying their chances aren't great. Let's put it that way.
I don't think, and I don't think the coattails of the league are great. So, I mean, the teams that look, I always have a hard time comparing like the Big East to the Big 12. Like maybe the Big 12 will turn out to be this whole big sham, but I doubt it. Brad, is that a Rutgers pennant? I'm going on my side here.
That is a Rutgers pennant, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a brutal loss today. I used to work at Rutgers. I went to Rutgers.
Oh, man.
So yeah, that's a tough one. But they're the only team in the field now with 4 bad losses. So
well, somebody has to. Somebody has to be.
Yeah. But there is precedent set with 4 bad losses in the field. Arizona State a few years ago, made it with, they had 2 Q3s and 2 Q4 losses, and they were in.
And that's the year they blasted St. John's in the play-in game, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Because St. John's had no business being in the field.
Right.
That year. And there was also no doubt in my mind that they were going to be. There may not be a program in America that values itself more for doing less. Oh, St. John's. Well, like it's 2023. Like all those people are dead. And Louis, God help him, he looks dead when you see him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but
Yeah.
it is. Well, fellas, I have a wife to neglect. And she left this little shindig now 3 hours and 49 minutes ago.
You need to get home, get some rest. Hit him
Hey, Joe,
straight.
good to see you, man.
Thank you.
I wish I
Thanks,
could
Joe.
hang, but you're doing,
No, no, that's great, Joe. We appreciate it.
great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jubba, you good? You good? Your health is good, I hope.
So far, yeah.
All right. Because you know what Rodney Dangerfield said? If we take perfectly good care of ourselves, we'll get very sick and die.
Right. We're gonna die anyway.
If we're going, I want the last bracket to be a good one.
All right.
Dave and the guys I don't really know, Graham, the rest of you guys I know, and keep up the great work. And we'll have to get DeCourcy on here one of these times.
Oh, he was on last year.
Yeah,
He was on
came
last
up-
Was
year.
it? All right, good. Good.
He's writing a huge story that he said he didn't think he'd be able to be on this year. So we
All
are,
right.
listen to this. We are going to have Dave Warlock on though on Sunday when we do the bracket.
Nice.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Well, so I noticed with our ones and twos, yours, and I guess we're all in agreement. So
Yes.
it automatically takes UCLA out of the West.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Yep.
I didn't realize that until about an hour ago.
Yeah. It's something I dug into a few days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so that gives, and look, I don't know how you guys think. I think they're pretty close to catching.
Yeah, we were just discussing it. I mean, if Purdue loses
good
to
God,
Wisconsin tonight,
I think Purdue's, but 4 out of 6, and you on the game just now before I came on with you, they're like, well, what does UCLA need? I said to just wait. They're not going to, and eventually Purdue will. So they just need to wait and keep volleying the ball back over the net until, yeah. Jerry wouldn't like that. Jerry wouldn't like that. The Boilers.
If Kansas ends up as the 1 overall and UCLA is the 5, they can't be in the same region. None of those 3 Big 12 teams can be in that region. It would have to be Arizona as the 9, as the 2 in Kansas's region. It's a weird year.
You're right. You're right. Oh, and Rocco, I saw your note about, we should, people who break a rule. Now, just remember, there was a time when I was alone on the earth at knowing the rules. So we must evangelize and allow people to come into the fold and, make the occasional blunder.
I agree with you on that for the most part.
Right.
But my goal is, the matrix every year gets about 20 to 30 new brackets, maybe more than that. And so a bigger percentage is just people doing seed lists. We call them seed listers. And, you're actually cheating yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're cheating yourself out of the process if you don't learn. But it was actually inspired because our boy, Andy Katz, put a bracket out yesterday. It was pretty lazily done. He had Northwestern playing Auburn. He had Iowa State playing Missouri. And those were super obvious rematches for somebody like me.
Don't even talk to me about Andy Katz right now.
So anyway, that was the inspiration, just so you know.
All right. I got it. Well, good night, fellas.
All right.
Good night, Joe.
Take care, Joe.
And
Thank you.
sir.
it'll all be over soon.
Yes.
Joe.
And that's good and bad, right? It's good and bad.
It is.
All right. Ciao.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Hey,
Night.
Joe.
Yep.
Joe Lenard.
Related note here, Tim. Since we're coming up on 11 o'clock here in
Yes.
tonight, and I do have to, my wife.
We're gonna knock this out right here.
About 5 a.m. So I'm
No,
gonna.
I've been watching the time. I knew we were getting late and I've been watching the time. Let's do this last one, then we'll be done.
I
How
got
about
a tomorrow at noon, so I got to fit suit.
All right, so we got the 8, okay? We need to rank those 8. I don't know, do we want to have a brief 5-minute discussion here and we'll get out at 11? So we've got Indiana, Miami, San Diego State, TCU, St. Mary's, UConn, Xavier, and Virginia. Did I say Virginia already? No, Virginia. Couple new teams in here we haven't really talked about. Who would just want to go ahead? Graham, how close are you to getting the new next ballot up there? Have you got? Have you
It
got
should have
this?
just come into your inbox about 3 seconds ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
One,
Perfect.
It's
Three.
there.
whew, barely.
So we're ranking these in order for the 3 seed line, right?
No,
Well, we're ranking these. We're ranking
Dave will
these. The
join.
top 4 will match up
Okay.
with Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Tennessee.
All right, that's
Yeah.
right. I'm behind here. Okay.
And just text those to Graham.
He sent the ballot, I believe.
Yeah, you should have got an email.
Okay. Okay.
Rocco, next time, please like call out Andy Katz for that shit.
Not my style. I've never been that way.
No,
You got to stay on brand there, Kerry.
no, I'm pretty sure he is blackballed me this year. I don't know what his deal is.
Yeah, I see him at Pac-12 Media Day every year. And so like 2 years ago, I did a quick little like interview with him about bracketology. And I don't know, I didn't really learn a lot. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Because he's still pretty new to it. It's like his 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
and I get it. He's doing like all these other things, interviews, he's at games. You know, he probably can only put like an hour into it. And he's like, oh, that probably looks good. Let's go with that. You know, he's not in the weeds like we are. So it's
UCLA is up 20.
lesson learned.
Oof.
That is not, and that's the kind of thing that just, you come back after that big win
Yeah.
and nobody expects you to go to back wins, but you go and you lose by 7 or 8. It's okay.
yeah, but 20
It
is
just feels a little bit worse when you get,
Wisconsin's up on Purdue by 1.
Yeah,
Arizona State at USC is going to be a massive
now.
game.
Edie just made a free throw. You guys probably got it on too.
Yeah.
I got nothing on. I'm at my in-laws' house. I'm looking at paintings on the wall.
I would have made sure of the TV situation before going.
We've had internet issues at our place with the Verizon technician out this afternoon. He thinks he fixed the problem. I didn't want to be at home and find out that he didn't fix the problem. So hopefully tomorrow I'll be at home.
Yep. Purdue's up 1 minute 39 to go.
So this will take another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
And that
So-
late game too. I mean, I won't be able to see it, but the Arizona USC game will be potentially big for USC too.
Yep.
Oh, you're talking about the game. So Chucky Hepburn right there. Graduated from the high school my granddaughter goes to. Just a little trivia for you.
Tim, you don't look a day over 40.
Thanks. So we're picking these 4 who will be added to Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Now,
Um,
let me ask this question while we're waiting. Is there, however order you want to put these, I would assume we have Gonzaga, Marquette pretty much on the bottom. Is there anybody from that list that we're voting on right now who does anybody have a strong feeling about Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Tennessee getting challenged by one of these other teams for a seed?
I think Tennessee would be interesting. I think they're probably 12 overall right now.
Especially with the injury being taken into account. How do they play the rest of the way? How many more games do they play? I think their seed could be, depending on how they play, could be lower than the metrics or their numbers say it should be.
Who would be the number 1 candidate from that list then?
From the 8 we just filled out?
Yeah.
Indiana, probably.
Yeah, probably Indiana.
Indiana, probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
based on the committee, I would say that. I would think based on overall resume, I would probably lean toward Connecticut, but
Yep.
Yeah, Indiana or Connecticut. All right, I better pull up this Purdue game on my phone at least.
58, 57.
Hey, Graham, I'm having a hard time with the form. It's not letting me click on the number 3 for UConn. It's
Okay.
it's literally like the
this
only
one-
I can put UConn 2 or 4, but I can't hit the 3 for some reason.
You got somebody else? Three?
I can
Think I
literally
had them
put
at 2.
I can literally
you-
put the button on any other number. I just can't do UConn 3.
I will take your
Just
word
leave
for
it
it.
blank.
They're 3 and count them in there.
Clear the form and try it again. It should work.
Okay. Sorry about the delay.
You're good.
I think I've hit it like 100 times.
That's what it was.
All right.
Okay, so we want to thank our sponsor, Godfather's Pizza, again, and just to let you know, we will kick it off tomorrow, 7 Eastern. We will at that point be through 3 lines. We'll have the top 3. So from what I projected, that's right on track. We're right on track, right on time. We will probably do some more seating tomorrow. Probably 4, 5, 6, maybe. And then we'll probably go back and obviously review what's happened tonight, if that's affected anything, and then probably jump into taking a dive into those bubble teams.
Just for curiosity's sake, Memphis is up 7 on SMU with just under 8 minutes or just under 9 minutes to go. That would not be a good look for Memphis.
No.
We have our 4 in order: Indiana, UConn, Virginia, and Xavier.
Okay. So now, do we want to just, well, we've got to put these in order, don't we? Yep.
Yep.
I will
we have-
add these 4 to the previous 4 to rank.
There you go. That won't take you
What was
long.
it? Indiana, UConn, Virginia, and Xavier, you said?
Yeah, so here's the 8 total: Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Tennessee, Indiana, UConn, Xavier, and Virginia.
Okay, I will share the spreadsheet one moment. If we even need to debate them.
$36.4 to go.
Yep.
Dave, you gonna make it for this one?
Oh, is it? Do we have it?
No, are you gonna stay awake for this game?
Oh, for the end of it, yes. Normally, I would probably be. I enjoy the DVR feature if I need to watch it. I watch it later.
That's nice.
All right, you should have gotten a ballot for these 8.
I got it.
Got it.
God, Graham, you are knocking them out.
The fun part is on this is putting your email in every single time.
Right?
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't know why it does that.
But it's a small price to pay for having the ballot option. So
Yes.
Yeah, the ballot option works great.
Purdue got the rebound.
it's got to get it to the right people to make free throws if you're Purdue.
Do we want to have a spirited debate on Tennessee and Indiana and UConn or anything before we submit?
I just think the committee is going to have Tennessee still. I wouldn't say solidly, but if they were doing it today, I still think they would be in the 3 line.
I just wonder, is injury to Ziegler's, are they going to, I know they're not going to have much sample size, But I just wonder if they might just go ahead and knock them down to a 4 just because of that. They haven't played great lately. And that, with that in mind, now they're missing a key player. Would that be enough for the committee to knock them down?
I do think the good news for them is they've had one game and they'll get another game this weekend and then the third game to maybe kind of see how Tennessee's results, if their results get impacted at all. But and I think it also may depend on what, if let's say UConn ends up being like the final 3 seed on their line,
Hmm.
and then they look and they say, yeah, they're not quite the same without him in there. We've got another team that we started out on our seed list that's 13 or, that's strong. So let's make that adjustment on the scrub somewhere in the line and say, yeah, I think with him being out, this team's actually slightly better now. And then they get bumped up a line and then down a line.
Okay.
I mean, that would be my take more so than maybe just arbitrarily saying, well, we're going to drop him a line.
Well, I didn't necessarily mean arbitrarily, but if they're 1-1 without him, because they haven't been that great lately,
Right.
that 1-1, that really doesn't tell you anything.
I don't know if it's the 10 losses or the predictive metrics or what. But, man, Indiana on this group of 8 sure sticks out like a sore thumb, like they don't belong. And 5 and 7 in road games.
Well, I punished them pretty hard today in my seed list. I agree with you, Kerry. I had the same kind of feeling when I looked at them.
Purdue fouled up 3 with 10 seconds left. Let's see how that works out for them.
Well, we do have our 4 in order, and actually it was pretty clean. There was a little disagreement, but for the most part, the order was very clear. Arizona, Marquette, Tennessee, Gonzaga.
Wow.
All right, gentlemen. Well, there's our top 12.
Good work.
Yay.
Very good work. Perfect. Very happy we got to where we did. We will hold over Indiana, UConn, Xavier, Virginia, these last 4. We will put the spreadsheet to bed for tonight. It's acting a little finicky, so it probably needs a nap.
The spreadsheet or you?
Both of us probably.
All right.
Although it's still the shank of the evening here in the Midwest. Thanks to everybody. Graham, awesome work, buddy.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you,
Zach, on the
Graham.
back end for keeping everything
Appreciate it.
running, keeping me
Thanks,
informed on viewership and so forth. By the way, everybody watching right now, so we'll be back at 7 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. We'll flip right over and start on the 4 seeds. Also, if you missed early parts of this where we're starting to fill the field a little bit, you want to see how we had a lot of discussion. Florida Atlantic, Auburn, Mississippi State. We had tons of discussion on those teams. Also Mountain West teams. You'll be able to go on here. Zach will have that pulled up onto the YouTube channel. And you can go back at any time tomorrow morning, whenever, and listen to parts of the discussion. Guys, thanks a lot. Awesome night.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks to God.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you all tomorrow night.